It's me, bald man. Look, I cut my hair. It's over. It's so over for me. Gave up. I went as low maintenance as humanly possible. Feels great. Anything happening? Oh wait. Oh, Destiny debated PragerU on David Pacman's show.
Not the one you went to.
Oh, your other international airport.
What the fuck?
Well, today we have.
What is happening?
Why?
Nobody was waiting for you?
No, why would I need something like?
You gave me. I texted you and be like, okay, someone's gonna be waiting.
Oh, you mean to get on the flight?
Yeah.
Yes.
Bro's getting an at-home haircut.
I definitely would have missed that flight otherwise.
Really?
Yeah, that line was excruciatingly long.
My at-home haircut would have been simple. Gone. What is happening? Bro's really min-maxing life right now.
Okay, I think that's it, Steven. I think we're all done. Do you want to trim your beard too or not? Where do you want to go? Because it's your
You can, sure, but not like, don't trim it super short.
No, I'm not gonna trim it super
Okay,
short.
because you're making weird short
What?
suggestions, implications.
What do you mean?
You're
Dude,
making.
I say we just do a buzz cut, okay?
No.
Fresh start, fresh Steven. New year.
Yeah,
new
I'm
me.
good. Okay. When I do my military arc, I'll do that. Okay.
You got the guns here for it.
Yeah. I don't think I have the attitude.
Or the height. I'm sorry.
Is there a
I'm
height
sorry.
restriction now on the
I'm sorry.
military? Okay.
Wait, do we know this person?
I'm actually more equipped for military work. All right.
True. Okay, I want to see how fucked up the line is. Let's see how good he fucked it. Where's my edger? Where's my little edger?
I think she's still at your dad's house. With
Is
your
she?
dad. Yeah, your mom. Oh no, wait, that's your gooner.
I don't care.
Something exceedingly special, I would say. We are going to be speaking with Dennis Prager, host of the Dennis Prager Show. He's been on with me before, co-founder of PragerU, and also.
I would assume this is why I had to be offline, because maybe David wanted all the. I mean, maybe Dennis wanted it offline too, but just for simplicity, maybe wanted it offline, so that he could have the. He can post it first, basically.
Stephen Kenneth Destiny Bennell II, known to some just as Destiny, known to some as Stephen, online streamer, gamer, political commentator. It's really great to have both of you on, and we've been working on this for a little bit, so many things have transpired since we kind of decided we were going to do this. So just to start somewhere and get the state of American politics right now, we had this assassination attempt against the former president, which, as I say, I am really glad did not succeed, because I want to defeat people with votes rather than bullets. That being said, Stephen, you've been criticized because you said you did not feel, and I hope I'm not putting words in your mouth, particular sympathy for what happened to Donald Trump, in part because when the victims have been on the left, you do not feel that there has been sympathy equivalent to that from the right. Can you tell me if I'm correct in characterizing what you said, and maybe tell us what you feel now?
Yeah, I think that conservatives, especially under Donald Trump, have been responsible for increasing the hostility and the political divisions in this country in an unprecedented way over the past 8 years. I don't think that's just a byproduct of what Trump does. I think that's explicitly and specifically why people like Donald Trump. It's because he bullies people, he calls people names, he's, and he's boisterous, he's loud, he's angry, he represents what you really, he says what you want to hear. So if that side is going to engage in that on the rhetorical level, and then on the policy level, if you've got people who, attempt to coup the government, lead an insurrection on January 6th in order to circumvent the peaceful transfer of power, when violent things start happening, it's very hard to look at that side and go, my God, I feel so horrible that these things are happening, because this is like exactly where your rhetoric leads. Like, where else would it go to but this?
What do you think, Dennis?
So it's interesting. In preparing for this, I got to know Stephen a little better, and I watched him and Ben Shapiro for about 10, 15 minutes, and it was excellent. And one of the things that I think you, Stephen, noted was the staggering, I don't remember, you used the word brain, but I don't remember the other term, about the staggering difference between left and right. And it's definitely one arena where you and I would agree that you believe that the hate-filled rhetoric and divisive rhetoric of this country is largely due to Donald Trump rather than to the left, does offer what I always say, and I have for 40 years on my radio show: I prefer clarity to agreement. We have great clarity in that you believe that. I think it is beyond belief that you believe that. If it weren't for Donald Trump, there would be just as much divisiveness in this country. When you call
What's the point of these?
Virtually everybody who is conservative deplorable, when you arrest for the first time in American history the leading candidate of the opposition party and a former president, when you paint the would-be president or a presidential candidate, as the New Republic, one of the leading left-wing magazines, does, as Hitler, and use the term regularly when the inaugural address of
well, let me guess. When the guy acts like Hitler and acts like Hitler and repeats the same things like Hitler, it might be okay to call him Hitler. I could be wrong there. When he's literally quoting things from Hitler, yeah.
Of Joe Biden, easily the most divisive president in American history, spoke of white supremacy as a threat to America, and meaning obviously those who vote for Donald Trump, and then say Donald Trump is responsible. If Donald Trump had been assassinated, God forbid,
likely
and
fraud.
God forbid about Joe
later.
Biden as well,
Likely fraud.
there would be not one diminution in the divisive rhetoric coming from the left. If Ron DeSantis were the nominee, he would be called Hitler as well.
So, Dennis, to be clear, you're saying you just disagree. You agree with Stephen that there is a difference in terms of violent rhetoric and incitement to violence from left and right, but you believe it is the left that has been inciting the violence, not the right.
Overwhelmingly.
Stephen?
It's just a deeply unserious opinion. There's no way to factually engage with that. Donald Trump is literally known in the entire world as being the guy that makes fun of people. He literally is the guy that gives nicknames, divisive nicknames or derogatory nicknames to his political opponents. Sleepy Joe Biden, Crooked Hillary. What did he say about Ted Cruz's dad might have been the Zodiac? He just says so many out-of-pocket things and then it's another world. I don't know if conservatives listening actually believe this, but when people say things like, oh yeah, Joe Biden is so unbelievably divisive. Really? Joe Biden, the guy that gets on stage and that we've seen has trouble stringing together sentences. This is the insanely divisive president of fiery rhetoric. When he gets on stage and he's like, MAGA Americans. And when I say MAGA, I don't mean everybody. I just mean the ones that deny the election, right? This is the guy that's insanely divisive. But when Trump says things like, well, there was the Second Amendment. They're coming for that, and we can't do anything about it. Well, maybe the Second Amendment people, can, and everybody laughs. But when Joe Biden in a private meeting to donors says, we need to put a bullseye on Donald Trump, that's violent rhetoric. Give me a break. That's just
what about that, Dennis? Opinion. I mean, what you mentioned the reference to white nationalism or white supremacy in Joe Biden's inauguration speech, but what else has Joe Biden done in your view to incite violence?
Oh, I didn't say he incited violence. I thought the issue was divisiveness. Who is more responsible for divisive? Also, Donald Trump is one man. Calling people Sleepy Joe or Little Marco is not in the same moral ballpark as calling people Nazis and depicting your opponent as New Republic in its last issue.
Okay, doesn't he call every Democrat a communist?
Painted Donald Trump as Hitler. The staggering amount of lies. It's the whole left world. Donald Trump is one man. The whole left is filled with hate. The lie that Donald Trump said that there were fine people who were Nazis in Charlottesville. Even Snopes, which is left of center, in its fact-checking said it was false that he ever said that that the Nazis in Charlottesville were fine people. He wasn't referring to them. The New York Times continues that lie to today. Joe
today.
Biden said
Okay.
that's the reason he ran for president, because of that horrific statement. The lying from the left and lying of smearing. This is not just Donald Trump. This is not just Joe Biden. The left smears. That's what they do. When I spoke at Arizona State University a year and a half ago, 34 professors of the 42 at the college that I spoke to at Arizona State said people should not attend because I am a bigot and a homophobe and an Islamophobe and a racist and a this. That's all they do. I invited all of them onto my radio show. Any one of you 34, all 34 can come on my radio show. Not one accepted the invitation. Did one invite me into their classroom? Of course not. So constantly referring to Donald Trump. Donald Trump is nothing compared to the whole world, from the New York Times to Joe Biden. The world of the left is a world filled with smearing hate.
Stephen, let me give you the last word on this before we move on.
Yeah, I mean, if Biden was invited to speak about a particular BLM riot, and Biden would have ever uttered the words Antifa, stand back and stand by, like Donald Trump said for Proud Boys, stand back and stand by, I think that the conservative sphere of media would have erupted in anger. If you want to talk about like who's more divisive or not, you just need look no further than the legislation passed in Congress. You know, President Trump ran for how long on repeal and replace the ACA? He wasn't able to replace it. He ran for how long on infrastructure? Biden was the one that passed that bill. Donald Trump didn't. And in terms of Donald Trump just being one man, Donald Trump is not just one man. Donald Trump is the entirety of the conservative party right now. And if you're a conservative politician or if you're in conservative media, you absolutely know that, because you either toe his line or you are destroyed.
I want to talk a little bit about what's happening now with the presidential race,
Fuck,
which
this
has
could
been
go horribly
upended by
wrong
Joe
if I
Biden
can't.
deciding that he
It
is
doesn't
not going
matter.
to seek re-election. Dennis, I know from listening to
Can't special sound
you
anything, right?
that you are not likely someone who is going to vote for the current vice president to be the next president of the United States. I don't think that'll come as a shock to our
Okay.
audience. What I am curious about is, do you see her as simply an elected official running a campaign with whom you disagree, or do you believe that there is the sort of danger of a Kamala Harris presidency that some associate with another presidency
get it.
for
What?
Donald Trump?
Oh my God, suck my fucking wiener, bro.
I didn't get the part on the Donald Trump. Do I see her as a dangerous?
There is a view that Donald Trump represents a threat to democracy, and that's a phrase that we hear frequently.
see. Yeah. So
I'm
is she-
curious whether you see Kamala Harris simply as an elected official you disagree with, or do you
I
feel
see.
that the
Okay,
word threat
fair
or
enough.
danger applies?
Yeah. My position and my
Oh my God!
was on this subject. To me, it is completely irrelevant which leftist runs.
Really?
Kamala Harris, Nancy Pelosi, Adam Schiff, Gavin Newsom. It is completely irrelevant. They're utterly interchangeable. All leftists damage everything they touch. This has been true from Lenin until the current leftists, wherever they are. Not liberals. I have great respect for liberals. I think they're
That's you,
naive,
Beldeck.
but I have
Nice.
great respect for them.
Can't wait.
Liberalism.
It's
and
gonna be a full U-Bell
conservatism have
deck.
a great deal in
Full
common.
combo U-Bell is what
Liberalism
I'm about
has
to see.
nothing in common with leftism. Leftism hates liberalism. Leftism is illiberalism, anti-liberalism. So I don't care who the leftist is who runs, whether it's Kamala Harris or Gavin Newsom or somebody else. They are utterly interchangeable.
Snake Eyes cards
Same
in
with
here
Joe
too?
Biden. It doesn't matter to me. I listed in one of my columns 25 institutions that the left is destroying, from the universities to the high schools to the elementary schools to the American Medical Association, which has announced that no birth certificate should list the sex of a child because we don't know what the sex is. The child will determine later. That's the American Medical Association, because the left has taken over the AMA. The left has taken over just about everything and destroyed everything, from the Boy Scouts to military recruitment, to music, to art, to architecture. Leftism is a shark. It's a destruction.
They destroyed all that, bro. Conservatives don't participate in any of that shit. They don't participate in art. They don't participate in music. They don't. What do you mean they've destroyed it? Like you don't even. You've given up.
The destruction machine. So
Okay,
Kamala
that's
Harris
a
is
lot,
irrelevant.
Dennis. Let's allow Stephen to weigh in on that, and a couple
Sure.
of specific points that Dennis made there. One is that there's an interchangeability to who is the Democratic candidate. Number two, that leftism destroys everything it touches. And number three, he mentioned Leninism sort of in the same breath as modern Democrats. Do you think that's an apt analogy?
I fully agree with Dennis that illiberal people are a danger to society. Right now, there's only one very popular illiberal candidate. That is easily Donald Trump. When you want to talk about people destroying democratic institutions, I would argue that probably one of the most important institutions that we have in the United States is the vote, is the idea, the concept of the peaceful transfer of power. Donald Trump, in multiple ways, whether it was by encouraging people to lie and submit false electorate votes to Congress, whether it was through a multi-channel pressure against his vice president, of which Pence has come out and spoken plenty about, to get Pence to throw away the actual votes on January 6th. Whether it was getting his attorney generals to write a letter to different states to lie about them having found voter fraud, whether it was Donald Trump lying to the American public, to Raffensperger, to people, to state legislatures in Arizona, Nevada, New Mexico, like all of these things. All of these actions were taken to circumvent the peaceful transfer of power, which I think is probably one of the cornerstones of a liberal democracy, of a democratic republic, of a constitutional republic, where we are allowed to vote on a change in leadership and where that leadership is expected to back down or step down if they've lost the vote. So insofar as illiberalism is a huge threat in this country, I agree, but it is exclusively coming from the right now. I don't think that the leftist candidates are leftist at all and that they're socialist or communist. Ironically, as Prager was complaining about calling everybody a Nazi, I know that Republicans have been in the business of calling everybody a communist for decades. I know because I grew up as a Republican and I used to listen to Rush Limbaugh talk about the commies every single day. So this idea that all of these candidates on the left are leftist, I don't think is true in any sense of the word. They're liberal. That's why the examples that Dennis gives of them destroying institutions are whether or not you list birth on a on a birth certificate, whether or not you list the sex or the Boy Scouts, or music or art or architecture. I think that threats to our democracy or the liberal order, I think, are far more evident when you look at the Republicans' attacks on our judicial system, on giving the executive branch, for instance, the power to have criminal immunity when the president takes certain acts. When you talk about trying to overthrow the election, I mean, you can go on and on. The attacks on institutions from the right are far more damaging than any perceived attacks from the left.
What about that, Dennis? Because I hear Stephen arguing that there's been sort of a reshuffling here where the illiberalism or authoritarianism is, he argues, now coming from the MAGA wing of the Republican Party. Even if you don't like leftists, would you concede that he's right to some degree about the authoritarianism?
No, because Donald Trump was president for 4 years. And we had far more freedom under Donald Trump than under Joe Biden.
How so?
We can give, okay. The number of mandates, for example,
Okay, Pog.
in the
OTK.
government and done by through
maybe
the
not.
CDC and NIH, if you don't wear a mask, you're fired. If you don't get a vaccine, you're fired. If you speak dissent at a college, you're
chance.
fired. The whole culture of speaking to
I don't actually know what's gonna
to big tech and telling them what you consider misinformation from the government. As the Prime Minister of New Zealand infamously announced, if you don't hear it from the government, it is not true. That's a left-wing position. All truth, and that's why I compare it to Leninism, which was my field. I studied Russian. I went to the Soviet Union a number of times, and he called the Soviet Union vaccine! Truth.
Oh my fucking god.
Truth is what the left says truth is. For 2 years, they lied. The Columbia Journalism Review, published by a rather non-right-wing institution, the most sophisticated or prestigious journalism school in America, Columbia University, wrote a gigantic piece, a major piece, on how much the New York Times and Washington Post lied about collusion between Trump and the Russian campaign. And if you differed with that, as you differ with anything,
fuck, I don't know if I'm actually
you
gonna
were
lose.
dismissed and you were misinformation, and the way in which they have taken over Google. But all of this is nothing compared to Donald Trump. But Donald Trump was president for 4 years. What did he do during those 4 years? Forget for the moment, I know you can't, because everything is based on January 6th. Up till January 5th of 2021, what did Trump do in 4 years in power that compares to Biden's and the Democrats' suppression of freedom in this country?
Well, let's let Stephen answer. And I think, to be fair, Dennis, I'm just kind of an arbiter here. Some of the things you mentioned with regard to masks and vaccines, I believe they happened while Trump was president, not Joe Biden. But I'll let Stephen, if he wants to address that. But to Dennis's question, up until January 5th, 2021, what was the illiberalism from Trump?
I would argue that the illiberalism from Trump was Trump's inability to work with Congress and trying to usurp as much power in the executive as possible to do things unilaterally as the executive without getting any kind of congressional approval or legislation from Congress, congressional, obviously. So like an example of this might be, he was unable to bring Congress together to get anything done insofar as the border or immigration goes. So instead, he relies on his executive power during times of great emergency to send the military down to the border. That's a usurping of power by the executive to try to run immigration policy on the executive. I don't think that was a very good thing because he couldn't get Congress together to do it. I think that his undermining, even if we ignore January 6th itself, and I'll ignore the electorate for fraud and everything else that he did leading up to December 14th and beyond, all of the claims that Donald Trump made about how the vote is going to be rigged, mail-in ballots are going to be rigged. Notice that if you listen to his rhetoric, he never says, this is what we need to do to secure mail-in ballots. This is what we need to do to make sure that our election is safe. All he wanted to do is get rid of mail-in ballots because he knew that Democrats were more likely to vote that way than Republicans. He had no desire to make the election safe. He only wanted to make sure that the election was going to be won by him. When you talk about like big tech and you talk about trying to take away freedoms using big tech, well, we just had Twitter being purchased by Elon Musk, who is, if you watch any of his tweets, is clearly a right-wing supporter. All of his speech and all of his support goes to right-wing candidates or right-wing talking points. And if you talk about a threat to the freedom of tech, well, the biggest threat that was represented to tech was when conservatives wanted to bash Twitter and Facebook over the head with restricting their section or rescinding their Section 230 protections, which would have allowed you to sue essentially people that hosted other people's posts for things that those people posted. You want to talk about destroying big tech or censoring big tech, removing Section 230.
Oh, I'm an idiot. I can't.
One way to do it.
I can't discard something that's not in my fucking hand.
Like requests made by big tech, if you want to call those censorship. We got the full Twitter files leaks, and as much as Republicans try to rewrite the record, Taibbi himself said, when it comes to the New York Post story, for instance, there was not a single example. There was no evidence whatsoever of government intrusion into Twitter to ask them to remove that story. But you better believe when that one comedian lady said that Donald Trump was I think a pussy ass bitch, she tweeted, Donald Trump sent in a request to Twitter to have them remove that tweet because he didn't like it.
Misplay.
So, if you want to talk about like big tech censorship or attempts to do so, we can talk about Elon Musk's acquisition of Twitter. We can talk about the types of requests that Donald Trump sent into Twitter, as opposed to the Biden administration, who when they sent in requests for specific tweets to be taken down, it was because they were of pictures of Hunter Biden. I'll just say that, not even close to comparable. And yeah, when you talk about like authoritarian actions, I think that one of the largest authoritarian actions you can take is to try to usurp as much power for yourself as possible. And that might be done in terms of running things that should be done by Congress, like immigration policy, by using the military. That might be done in ways of like undermining an upcoming election and saying that the election is going to be fraudulent, or it might be done in ways of like avoiding ever being held responsible for things that you do for criminal activity, right? The Supreme Court's granted him criminal immunity. He wasn't impeached in the Senate because they said, oh, well, we can't impeach him. He's already out of office. And he pardoned almost every single person that worked with him. Why would he pardon people like Paul Manafort? That's so crazy. I understand why people might want to argue for pardons for maybe like Flynn or maybe Stone, but Paul Manafort, why? It was so crazy. You can look up how many pardons he's done on the presidential website. It's insane compared to any other president.
What do you think, Dennis? I mean, certainly it sounds like a lot of unilateral action for sure. Do you defend all of the things? Do you dispute that Trump did any of the things Stephen mentioned? And if you don't dispute it, do you defend it?
Yeah, he started to build a wall. That was I don't know whether it's in his province or not. I don't know what the law is. But it is true. He could not get Congress to agree because the Democrats, since Ted Kennedy in the 1990s, have worked to open the border. You cannot have a civilization with an open border. That is a given. I assume Stephen would agree with that open border and keeping a country intact are mutually exclusive. Can we agree on that?
Yeah, that's why nobody asks for an open border.
Oh, yes, the Democrats do. I mean, if you deny that, that's good. You'll be on record, Dennis, saying...
Well, define it as policy, Dennis, so we could agree.
It's really critical, really critical. Do you believe, Stephen, that the Democrats have been for a controlled border and not for an open border in the last 10 years.
I think the Democrats tried to pass comprehensive legislation that was written by Langford, a Republican in the Senate. I think Donald Trump and the Republicans are the ones that
It
killed
doesn't
that, and that
answer
was
my
on public
question.
record.
Please
So
answer
no,
my question.
the Democrats have not
Okay,
been
do
for
you
open
believe
borders.
the Democrats are for a closed border? Okay,
It's not
all
just
right, good,
closed
good,
or open,
okay.
but
Can you
nobody's
define
define
not
it, though,
argue-
Forrest?
and
Hold
The
on,
border
hold
is
on.
a very complicated thing.
Can
Yeah.
you define
no, it's
what
not
you mean?
complicated.
It is
at
very
all.
complicated.
It's not complicated.
Define
sorry,
open.
they-
Dennis is like, it's either open or closed. What the fuck do you mean by closed border? What the fuck do you mean by an open border? Yeah, hopefully he defines it. Let's see.
Don't have much information about immigration or the
fine,
border.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. All right. As I said, I prefer clarity to agreement.
Can you define open border, Dennis?
Yes, letting anybody who wants to come into this country come in. It's not complex.
And then to be clear, you think that that's the case right now?
That's the case right now. And that is the case what the Democrats want. That is correct.
So somebody-
They have sanctuary cities all over my state
Excuse
of
me,
California.
sanctuary city has nothing to do with immigration
Oh,
policy.
sure as it does. If you are here illegally, we will not allow ICE or anyone else to take you away. You can come. That's what sanctuary city
That
means.
is not what a sanctuary city is. That's
really?
not
What
what a
does it
sanctuary.
mean?
Sure, I can tell you what it means. When it comes to enforcing immigration, that is
getting real
exclusively
red. I don't
in
know
the
if you can see
purview
this.
of the United States government. Now,
It's like
it
a
tends to be
tomato.
the case that if you're a state official, you can collect information about whether or not a person is here legally or not. And if you want, you can turn that information over to federal authorities like Immigrations and Customs Enforcement or like the Department of Homeland Security. You don't have an obligation to do so. And some cities explicitly say we won't. So a sanctuary city is just a city where if they arrest you, they're not going to do an immigration check. And if you fail, they're going to turn you over to the federal authorities. As somebody that is a conservative, who I imagine would have an appreciation for the concept of federalism, but the important protections of states' rights, because that's what we said when we threw abortion back to the states, you should champion a state deciding whether or not they would want to cooperate with a federal authority when it comes to turning somebody over for matters of deportation. But a sanctuary city does not legalize illegal immigration. It's just whether or not a city wants to cooperate with federal investigators when it comes to turning over an undocumented citizen or immigrant.
Fine. Okay, we can continue.
Do you agree with that, Dennis? I mean, do you recognize that it's an issue of state?
The issue of people crossing a federal border is a federal issue. It is not just a state issue. Okay, it is so elementary. It's a national border. It's not just a state border.
I'd be really
Okay.
careful with that because that wasn't Abbott's argument when he wanted to enforce the border in Texas. He said that the Texas National Guard should be that
I
way. You
said
just
it's
used the
not
Biden
just. I said it's
administration.
not ju- Well, because there's no federal oversight. Because the Democrats are happy to have a great number of people come in. They're potential Democratic voters in their view.
I think it's
But
fair.
so,
Can I
Dennis,
ask for,
are you-
is there,
hold
wait,
on,
is there a
Stephen,
single
let's-
lawmaker or is there a single prominent Democrat that said we want open borders?
No.
Okay.
And so, what are the open border policies, Dennis? If the sanctuary city you concede,
is not relevant, but the answer is no. Okay, go ahead.
if you concede that the sanctuary cities themselves are not the border, what are the open border policies that are at issue that you would want Stephen to either defend or denounce?
No, we have to have only legal immigration. I don't know what the rendering of a simple.
What the hell is?
concept
What the fuck
complex.
does illegal? What does legal immigration mean? Like, you can have open borders that are legal immigration. It just means that anyone who walks through your border, you just allow through. That's legal, and it's immigration.
Is a way to avoid the moral issue, the political issue, the real issue. The real issue is that under Democratic influence since Ted Kennedy, this is not new, but it has been hastened under Joe Biden. The border has been essentially open to millions of people to come into this country illegally. And you can't even say illegal alien. You can't say alien and you can't say illegal. You now say undocumented immigrant. The very fact that they have changed the language is proof that they are for it.
Okay, let's briefly talk about Project 2025 as we don't have unlimited time. Stephen, I'll go first to you. Project 2025 fears that we're hearing about from the left media ecosystem right now, well-founded fears or overblown or hyperbolic?
I'm going to be completely honest with you. I don't really focus much on policy for conservatives because I don't think conservatives have or run on policy anymore.
Boo!
I think that all of the fears around Donald Trump have to do with his disdain for the constitutional democratic republic that we have and his desire to usurp as much power into his sole position as president as possible. And that's what I focus on. I know that I've seen people talk about Project 2025 and people have fears of Project 2025, but conservatives know nothing about policy and they don't even care to run on policy anymore. So I just personally don't focus much on the particular aspects of that platform, although I wouldn't be surprised if Donald Trump and his administration wanted to push a lot, given some of the quotes that have come out, I think from Donald Trump in the past, and I think JD Vance about it, and the association with like the Heritage Foundation, everything else. But it's not a thing that I particularly focus on.
And to be clear, Stephen, you don't focus
It's
on
Nathan.
it because you don't genuinely think Trump knows anything about it or cares about policy, or
He's
because you
banned.
think it's unlikely
Get
to
him
be
off the screen.
implemented.
I don't know what the final versions of it would look like when it comes to implementation. I don't know if Republicans will have the necessary majorities in the House or Senate to pass it. My concern is far more singularly with Donald Trump as the head executive than it is with any particular policy platform, because Donald Trump is just not a very effective leader. He's not a good politician. When they were in office, they couldn't pass any policy. They couldn't actually get any legislation passed. So I'm not as concerned about a policy platform as I am about what Donald Trump wants to do as the president or as the executive.
Dennis, what about you? What are your thoughts on the discussion that's been growing,
Okay,
certainly in the last few weeks?
We largely agree. 2025 is irrelevant to the Trump administration, and he has said so. No, I don't know anyone who's read it. It's 800 pages. I haven't read it. Stephen presumably has not read it. It's the Heritage Foundation is a conservative think tank. There are left-wing think tanks, liberal think tanks, conservative think tanks, right-wing think tanks, and they're all permitted to put out whatever they want. Am I permitted? And I'm not being cute. If I'm not, I'm not. But can I ask Stephen a question?
Please.
Yeah.
Okay. So Stephen, how do you stand on men who say they're women competing in women's sports?
I'm assuming the question has to do with trans people competing in sports. I think that my personal view is that sports up through probably high school are just there for people to kind of like play games and get along with each other and, you know, like build camaraderie and stuff. So I don't really have much of a concern past or up to that point. Once you get to NCAA or professional events, I think that the dividing between the sexes is very important for athletic competition. So I'm generally opposed to trans people participating in the gender they identify
So you
with.
know then that the Biden administration has
Wait, just steamroll over that because he didn't give the answer that I thought he would give. Hold on.
extended the anti-discrimination legislation passed to protect women. They have extended it to trans people. You are aware of that.
That they've done what?
They have extended it to trans people so that
Wait, extended what to trans people? I'm sorry.
you cannot discriminate against trans people. If a man says he is a woman in college, he should be allowed to play in college sport. That is the Biden administration's position.
I'm not aware of that right now. I thought it went
Okay,
the
fair
opposite.
enough.
My
Okay, so
understanding,
people
just to be
can
clear,
check
my
on
understanding
that.
is that right
Okay.
now they
All
can't.
right. So what is your position? Since I think the whole left stinks, you think Donald Trump stinks. So I talk about the left. So let's go to Gavin Newsom. In California, where I live, there is a law. It is a law. It's not a recommendation. That if a kid, an 8-year-old, says that she is a boy, and the school is not permitted to tell the parents that the girl thinks she is a boy and goes by a boy's name in her school. Do you think that is a moral and good law?
I don't think about this. I'm so sorry, but when I look at Donald Trump, this is a man who tried to overthrow the election.
Yeah, like you can have an answer to this question, but the answer is completely irrelevant on to the fact that like, oh, Donald Trump is literally trying to overthrow democracy. Who gives a fuck?
Resist the peaceful transfer of power. I can't
Right,
think of a thing that I
okay.
think less
There we
about
go.
than how
Okay,
where
so it's
trans
all
people
right.
stand. Just to be
It's
clear,
all
hold on. Just to be
Trump.
clear for
It's
people
all-
that don't know. Just to be clear for people that don't know my background.
You
okay.
guys
Hold
on
on.
the left should thank God
Yeah.
every day for
Hold
Donald
on, well, wait,
Trump. You
Dennis.
should say,
If
even
Stephen,
you're an
hold on.
atheist-
If Stephen doesn't want to answer the question as you see it, allow him not to answer it.
Sure.
But let's
Or
hear
I'll
what you
answer
have
it.
to say.
I'll answer
Okay,
it.
so fine, that's fine.
I was banned from Twitch for opposing the integration of trans people into sports. I don't think it's appropriate. I probably stand in
I didn't
opposition
ask
to a
that
lot of the
question.
very,
I
very
asked-
far left.
okay.
What?
The law. Okay, so let me just go on record. I can give you the rest. We could talk hours.
Sure. What's the California law for the 8-year-old? Go ahead. What was it?
Yes, you cannot. A school cannot tell a parent. Cannot.
Cannot.
Is not allowed to tell a parent if a child identifies as the other sex in a California school.
That would probably be something I'd be opposed to as a parent. I think I would want to know that if my kid was identifying as a different gender
Yes,
in class.
correct. So you see, if it weren't for Trump, you would have to spend the time with me or anyone else defending the left and their scum.
What? Why? Wait, what? Oh, is he just saying that Trump? Wait, how is this a good argument? Trump is such a dog shit, horrible politician that's trying to ruin our thing that you can pivot and focus on him because he's way worse. And if you didn't, then you have to defend this horrible stuff. It's like, yeah, it sounds like we agree that Donald Trump should be removed from any possibility of running the country.
Gummy little laws like that ruin lives of kids and have girls get their breasts cut off at 18 or even younger. What is being? It's like nothing matters. All that matters is January 6th. Every time
Yeah.
we raise an issue,
Yes.
we go back to January 6th.
Yes, because it's the ending of the ending of democracy in the United States. Nothing else matters.
Because he tried to rebel
Yeah.
against
they
the peaceful
didn't try
transfer
to
of power.
rebel. Told people to go peacefully to the halls of Congress.
He
did
told
not
Mike
tell-
Pence, why were they going there? What were they going there for?
To protest the results of the election.
Exactly.
Because they thought it was cheating. You're right.
Exactly.
You're
It was an
allowed to
insurrection. They
protest.
thought, no, you're not allowed to
No,
protest
you're
with
not allowed
violence.
to overthrow, but you were allowed to protest.
Yeah, you're not peacefully. That January 6th was not peaceful.
When they were going there to support Mike Pence, what did they want Mike Pence to do?
Yes,
They wanted him to hang.
they wanted Mike Pence not to accept certain electors from certain states.
Exactly.
Yes, that's right.
Correct.
Okay, but okay.
Which was
And they did so violently, by the way.
the
No,
ECA,
I
right?
don't
That was
agree-
illegal
I
under the
don't
Electoral
agree
Count
with
Act,
that,
right?
But I don't agree with that, and that's
That's fine.
understand
I
that,
don't agree
but
with
it wasn't an-
insurrectionists either, but you
No, it wasn't
understand the
an insurrection.
ridiculousness of
Okay.
wanting to have a man who is now usurped criminal immunity as the president. So a lot of the illegal actions that he took.
Right,
Remember,
okay.
Roberts in his opinion said explicitly that when Donald Trump told his acting and his deputy attorney general, can you guys write fake notes to the state legislatures to say that we found evidence of voter fraud that wasn't there? We can't even criminally review that anymore, right? So a man who's now criminally immune who tried to overthrow the government, yeah, that's going to stand out more in my mind, even if they
Okay,
failed
fine.
at it,
Overthrow
than
the
whether or
government.
not 8-year-olds in California, their teachers tell
Right,
their
that
parents
doesn't
if they're
matter to
trans
you.
or whatever. I
Okay,
didn't say it doesn't
right.
matter, but some
In
things
the
matter more
daily-
than other things.
Right, in the day, you're right. It
The democracy probably matters a little bit more than whatever the fuck is happening in California.
matters
Thank you.
less
You know I
than
am.
what happened on January 6th. January 6th is wildly overblown. It wasn't an insurrection. Not a single person has been arrested or indicted on insurrection. Donald Trump was not accused of fomenting insurrection. The term is a left-wing lie about what happened on January 6th. I don't like January 6th. I condemned it when it happened. It was not an insurrection. That the language that the left uses, fascist, Nazi, insurrection, misinformation, disinformation. This is the language of
My custom one
division
is not-
that you
what- what-
denied the left engages in.
First of all, I've never denied that the left engages in divisiveness. Of course they do. I'm just saying that Joe Biden himself doesn't, which is evident enough by how much joint legislation he's passed. This guy's got 40 years, in government. Of course, this guy, has relationships with people, isn't as divisive as he seems, and I think that's evidenced by what he can pass. To say that the insurrection is the language of leftists, this is the language that came to us in the 14th Amendment after the Reformation, when, surprise, surprise, after the Civil War, people in Congress didn't want leadership again. That was part of the Civil War. That shouldn't be that shocking. There's nothing left-wing about that idea. That should be a very American idea. We don't want people that would try to insurrect the government to fight against it. Also, if we want to talk about health issues, we're welcome to talk about it as well. But I care way less about the leftists have some crazy views on 8-year-olds being trans, which I think is really stupid, by the way. And I agree that that's stupid. But I care way more about the fact that I don't know if we're ever going to have a new vaccine in this country that is going to have mass protests against it now, because conservatives become the party of anti-vax. I think that's a
That's
far
right.
more pressing
That's
public
correct.
health matter than
Because the
trans
CDC
kids.
Yes, because the CDC is in cahoots with Big Pharma and lied to the American people about masks, about distance, and about lockdowns, and ruined a whole generation's lives because of
yes,
the
let it
lie
take
that
over me.
lockdowns were necessary for kids. Sweden didn't lock down one day for kids, not one kid died. That you defend the CDC, the NIH.
Sweden had like totally different, like they had other problems because of them not doing any lockdowns. Just, it's not like they were completely immune from everything that happened. They still got the same inflationary bullshit. They still got the same economic weirdness, and they still pretty much had the same deaths, just like way front loaded. So like,
And the Democrats.
and like the deaths everywhere. Well, or no, sorry. I'm so sorry. They had way higher deaths than every other Scandinavian country, and they were all front loaded. That's what I meant.
Democrats and for that matter, any Republicans who supported lockdowns, it will not be something you will be proud of when you look back at your career.
Yeah, and the entire world was all in cahoots for all the people. You point out Sweden. Compare Sweden's death rates
Yeah.
to every other European country, even the other Scandinavian countries that did enact
no.
lockdowns, and
Don't
more
they
people died
compare
in
them?
Sweden.
I have compared them.
Okay, then you know that
Yes.
Sweden fared about the worst of any of those
Sweden-
countries.
Only if you compare them to Scandinavia. And Finland has announced that it would do exactly what Sweden did if it ever happened again. They were wrong in locking down their students. If you're on the record as defending nearly 2 years of lockdowns of students, and
How did this come to just lockdown of students?
No,
You
no.
know the lock.
Yeah, like the lockdowns. Here's the lockdowns, a massive umbrella of lockdowns, and you're like, this one pillar is super bad,
That's affecting
and you
more-
defended just this. It's like,
not
students,
just
right?
lockdown of students,
Okay,
but
'cause
it's
you said that like 3
particularly
times.
egregious because kids were hurt more than adults were because of the lockdown.
oh, and now he's bringing up the stupid fucking, oh man, kids were killing themselves at disproportionate rates, and it's all because of the lock.
That's why I'm noting kids.
Sure.
And because it was particularly irrelevant because kids were not dying of COVID, whereas old people were.
Sure, but the issue was that teachers tend to be older people, and they
Yeah.
were the ones that were worried.
Yes.
Whether
Right.
or not the lockdowns
no
were,
teacher died in Sweden. Just
whether
for the
or not the
No,
lockdowns
not a
were
single teacher. I find that hard to believe.
teacher
bad,
died in Sweden.
Yeah.
The lockdowns were despicable. Despicable.
Whether or
And
not-
that is the reason that
Mm-hmm.
people are
He's just so
very,
angry.
very suspicious and should be. I was never. If so, my brother is a professor of medicine. I trusted doctors like I trusted my own parents. I trusted the medical community.
Who fucking
I don't
cares about
any
this
longer.
rambling?
They've lost my trust.
Yep, now
Like
you trust
AMA,
Joe
that-
Rogan and
Yeah.
Donald Trump. Yeah. Now we trust podcasters who have every vested interest in lying to you about things in order to make more ad revenue and to sell you more products for whatever
Oh, I see.
vitamin
So-
boost or whatever.
oh,
If
okay.
like
All right.
if you want to talk about
Is that not true?
lockdowns and them being good or bad, I think at this point, I think the evidence is out that the lockdowns were probably too aggressive. I think most people agree with that. The issue isn't debating whether or not they were good or bad.
Yeah, it's just that something like that had not happened before for hundreds of years. No, 100 years? 100 years exactly. But like the last one is a completely different environment. It hadn't happened for 100 years. So how do you expect people to really react? I'd much rather be overzealous on something than and look back at it and be like, we were maybe a little bit too aggressive. Than underzealous and,
It's that
who
you
knows?
conservatives assume that they were done maliciously.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
entire world came together to
It's
maliciously
irrelevant
lock.
if it was
It's not
malicious.
irrelevant.
No, it's explicit to your fucking argument that it was malicious. What do you mean it's irrelevant? What do you mean it's irrelevant to be malicious? It's explicitly tied to your argument that this was malicious. What? Why so much dogmatism? Dogmatism, is that the correct word I'm using? Why being so dogmatic to all the and using the most vitriolic language possible to describe the lockdowns if you're trying not to make them intentional or like malicious in some way? Like you're saying they're despicable as if you want to punish people, but why are you punishing somebody for something that they did without malicious, like with malicious intent? That makes no sense. Like if you try to do something out of the goodness of your heart, are you gonna retroactively punish somebody because it turns out that they were wrong? Like I don't think you're gonna do that. I think you want to punish them as if they did it on purpose because you do think that they did it with malicious intent.
Hey, you know what?
the
I don't give a
motivation
damn
for
if it was
why you-
malicious. I don't give a damn if it was malicious. It ruined societies. It ruined children's lives. The New
You don't
York
think the
Times
intention of a
itself-
policy matters when it comes to trusting them in the future? You don't think knowing if they were acting maliciously or not isn't
Yeah, it's like a 2 IQ fucking take of like they got this one thing wrong. I want the whole world to burn down now. You got this thing wrong, and I will never trust anything again except for Joe Rogan and I don't know, random podcasters that feed me news.
important in deciding if you would trust
No,
them
it
for
is
future?
not. No, and by the way, well, I will say this with regard to the vaccines and
But
the
you can
fact-
bet your fucking ass if the rest of the world were more conservative based or he had a somewhat agreement with it, he would be completely fine with it. Iraq war, he would love it if he agreed with it. But now it's you can pivot outside of being war hawkish because now like whatever. Like it's just if it went the other way, I mean he would be a staunch defense. Well, I mean the example is actually right there. January 6th.
fact that they were not tested and they were unleashed upon
January 6th is probably the most egregious thing to happen in all of U.S. history. Yeah, maybe, arguably, right? It's probably worse than 9/11 at least. In terms of in terms of damage to the country and to the foundations of the United States, arguably it's up there. It's up there. So to not give a single fuck about that, but to care about lockdowns, like, okay.
People, and that they told children, they still told little babies should get these vaccines when babies aren't dying of COVID. I think there was an element of maliciousness, not in the sense of we want to hurt people, but we want to
harm people.
Profits that big pharma enables us to have, because big pharma. Let me ask you, do you think big pharma has only the interest of the public in mind?
I'm a liberal capitalist. I think that big pharma has the interest of making money. The
That's
goal
correct.
is the
Okay,
FDA and the
fine.
government to
Right.
regulate, to make sure that they're adhering to what they're supposed
That's
to
right,
do.
but they
Now, if
didn't-
you want to
but they
take the
didn't
position, if you want to
regulate.
take the position that every corporation around the world that would have had plenty of investment in calling this out, by the way, why didn't J&J say that the mRNA vaccines were rigged? If you want to say that every academic institution across the entire world, especially in other countries, weren't calling out the horribleness of the mRNA vaccines, and if you want to make the
Why isn't Russia judging us for lockdowns? Why isn't China judging us for lockdowns? Why wasn't Sweden? I mean, I guess they're allies, so they're just going to take like a side position. But nobody's calling out this except for weird fucking like podcasters and Dennis Prager and like, okay.
argument that every country in the world, even those
Like
that
even Russian bots aren't like going ballistic over this shit. Like, right? Like you would think.
utilize our vaccines, like China, Russia, Iran, and Qatar, they would have every incentive to say, by the way, those mRNA vaccines are killing Americans. It's strange that all of these people seem to be silent on this issue, but thank God we've got Joe Rogan and Jordan Peterson to tell us about how corrupt, and Brett Weinstein to tell us how corrupt, I guess, big pharma is. I thought that conservatives used to be proud of large American businesses. This was
You're
an
right, I
operation
was.
under warp
You're
speed from Donald
100%
Trump,
right.
a Donald Trump warp speed, a global
I was, and then they ruined it. I don't know why I brought up Trump.
capitalist thing that
I-
Americans should be proud of, but we can't even take pride in it because you're so conspiracy brained on it now.
The
I'm not
issue
conspiracy.
is not conspiracy brained, and sometimes there really are. Look, I will admit to you, I defended the big pharma nearly all of my broadcast career. I have been awakened to the corruption that is now involved. I am sorry to say.
You've been awakened to something
I
called
never
audience
took-
capture. I
never
think
took
audience
Robert
capture is what we
F-
awakened to.
I never took Robert Kennedy seriously on the issue of vaccines and kids, and now I do. I admit it. I have been chastened by the
Yeah.
facts.
The
All
guy
right,
that says
gentlemen,
the polio
listen,
vaccine
I
has
know
killed
that
more
we
people
could
than it's
go-
saved. Yeah. Okay.
We
sorry.
could go endlessly on vaccines, but we have come to the end of our time. The last thing I want to ask you, and it really should be just a one word, Dennis, you first. Who do you expect to be the winner of the November election?
So I feel bad in not
We've jumped over one word.
giving you a yes or no or a one-person answer.
Trump or Harris?
I never answer predictive questions.
Okay.
I'm only interested in what I think we need to do, and the thought of 4 more years of the left governing the country frightens me in terms of liberty. So
All right. But
Oh yeah, but the guy who brought together January 6th doesn't frighten you in terms of liberty. Oh,
prediction. Stephen, who do you expect to see the win in November?
I'm feeling good on Harris right now.
Feeling good on Harris. Gentlemen, we haven't
that was more than one word.
quite said it all, but we've said a lot of it. Dennis Prager, Stephen Kenneth Destiny Bennell II. Thanks to both of you for joining me today.
Holy cannoli.
good to be with you again, David.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, bye. Clip that up. Gone.
You had the thing with Elon's daughter recently come out where she referenced you in her thread. You
She
got the
did?
fact that
Me?
you.
My name personally, Adrian, right?
Yep.
Is that correct?
Adrian Dittman. Yep.
What? That's wild.
You also sound. You have all the same hobbies and interests and everything else. You know what you should do? You should try to do a 50,000 sub drive on YouTube. And you should do a face reveal at 50,000 subs. You should stream with a webcam. I bet you'd get a lot of people subscribing. If you're worried about a lot of the real life fallout from potentially revealing who you are, do you have strong opinions about the fact that it seems like Libs of TikTok is officially sanctioned by X to basically dox and destroy the lives of anybody that they decide to post on that X account?
I went to make a video on you.
No, hold on, wait. Don't call it semantics. It's essential. The not Elon guy wants to chat soon. I need to watch this real quick. Hold on. Hello.
Yo, what's up, man? Can you hear me?
Yep. Just doing, signal processing streams.
Yeah, true. I see you're preparing for that little debate with Voorhees.
Oh, on the Gen 6 stuff? Oh, I don't need to prepare for that. We'll see how
Yeah.
that goes.
Yeah, that guy's gonna be interesting. I've heard him speak in a couple of spaces, so yeah, sure. It's kind of interesting to talk to you again because I mean, the last time we had a conversation was kind of a debate. Even though I have to say, the intent of the discussion with you was not really a debate. That was more like baiting in a sense because I wanted to just have an answer to a question in regards to basically a thing with the dead guy. So
Okay.
I decided, hey, what's the best way to actually get a direct answer? So I'm just going to do that.
Hold on, sorry. I'm just gonna. God.
That instead. So I didn't really want to debate you at all. I just wanted to answer to a question. So it was more like an interview.
Not Elon, for
because
sure. Okay.
From perspective of debate, I absolutely got cooked. Like, there's no way forward for that.
Sure. I mean, I also have normal conversations too. They're not always debates, but there are some topics that I obviously like to debate on and other things that I'm willing to just have conversations on, but yeah.
Yeah, that's why I decided, hey man, what if we just
Uh-oh,
had a normal
wait.
conversation?
Brittany Simon just hit.
Person I saw Destiny say that he tried to give you advice and warn you about moves. Person I saw
Holy Christ! What is this? Triple speed? Oh wait. Fuck. Oh, it's their turn.
Destiny say that he tried to give you advice and warn you about moving too fast with your husband and you got weirdly defensive. His words, not mine. Melina and Destiny are sitting with me in Miami. Here, you want some fucking lore? I'm having fun. I'm hanging out. I'm laughing. And Destiny and Melina are sitting down and they start to give me like marriage advice. And I go, oh, no, I don't need marriage advice from you guys, right? Like you're totally heading towards a divorce. Like you guys are.
Oh God. Hold on. I didn't realize that guy's turn was gonna be literally one card long. Oh, yes, true. Because now I can. It's a spellcaster, so. Oh, but it has to be a light spellcaster? Fuck. Did I just fuck myself? I think I did. Uh-oh. Find a way. Does this do anything from the graveyard? Boy, I sure wish that was the right card. Um... What is it that I need? Do I go straight into Grand Guignol? Or this? Into Grand Guignol? I think. Oh no, I don't have anything to discard. Haha. So let's not fuck that up. Yeah. So let's go. What is it that you do? Oh shit. Oh, never mind. It's just I would just be able to summon the fusion material, which would have helped. Fuck you, stupid Diabell Star loser. Okay, sorry. New Brightney Simon lore.
that I saw Destiny say that he tried to give you advice and warn you about moving too fast with your husband and you got weirdly defensive. His words, not mine. Melina and Destiny are sitting with me in Miami. Here, you want some fucking lore? I'm having fun. I'm hanging out. I'm laughing. And Destiny and Melina are sitting down and they start to give me like marriage advice. And I go, oh, no, I don't need marriage advice from you guys, right? Like you're totally heading towards a divorce. Like you guys are literally openly like cheating on each other and having issues and like gaslighting. Like don't give me your advice. And they were both like, oh my God. And I know they've never dealt with somebody as blunt as me.
I just like the idea. Can't they say the same thing back to you? You're fast tracking your way towards a divorce because you're moving too quickly and you don't actually know the person that you're marrying. Blah 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 blah. Blah. Like no, yeah, no, no, yeah, no, yeah, no, yeah, no, no, yeah, no, 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 yeah, yeah, no, yeah. Okay.
I don't need two people who are serial cheating on each other and gaslighting each other to give me marriage advice. And they both were shocked. They went like this. Oh my God. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you think you were dealing with a 22-year-old? I'm a 35-year-old fucking woman. Don't come to me with marriage advice when you guys are heading towards a divorce. And yeah, they were offended. I wasn't offended. I was clear. I was clear with my boundaries and my openness. I wasn't the one who was offended. I just don't need serial cheaters to be giving me advice. And by the way, how'd that divorce go? Pretty fucking messy, huh?
Okay, so I really not that spicy.
Say that he tried to give you advice and warn you
Wait,
about
also
moving too fast with your husband and
lies?
you got weirdly
Brittany, someone making up new lies? Does it really even matter? Wait, what's the lie? A, what's the lie? And B, does it matter?
advice and warn you about moving too fast with your husband and you got weirdly defensive. His words, not mine.
I don't think there necessarily needs to be a lie there. It just comes off as rich. That's the place. Oh my fucking... I have to go to all those scenic caves? Holy Christ. There was that place. Oh! God, fuck.
So it's kind of cool, something refreshing. I gotta ask, what do you usually do for fun? You know, like if you're not streaming,
Trying
or
to open
anything, like,
packs.
what do you do
Fuck.
for fun to like chill out and unplug from reality?
I don't know. Honestly, I super enjoy it. Like I prioritize for my work the things that I enjoy doing. So my whole life basically revolves around my work. But I like
so
enjoy
lazy.
all of it, so it's fun for me. It's like when I'm not streaming, if I'm traveling somewhere, like I don't mind like reading books or reading papers or reading Supreme Court cases, or you know like doing emails to set up debates or interviews or talking to employees or podcast stuff, whatever. Yeah, it's just all like a lot of fun for me. Yeah.
So you enjoy it so much that it basically doesn't feel like it's actually work. It's just something that you kind of.
Should I probably just buy
this
this
is
now?
how you chill, essentially, right? Where it's something that directly bleeds into
Fuck packs,
what
just
is
buy that.
your professional life, right?
Yeah, I would say that like my chilling would just be like doing a lazy stream or something. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I like that. I kind of relate to that at the same time as well. It's like my version of chill is to try and read as much as possible, try to find, you know, accuracy. Because, you know, when you do breaking news on X, the problem is a lot of people tend to spread false information as well. Just kind of like pollutes the data set and it's annoying as shit. They kind of have to like do a lot of research in the background. I do this thing as a hobby, which is like meme hunting essentially, to just try and find the exact origin point of a meme. And that usually helps you kind of like track the origin point for specific types of news. Like for instance, there was this, you know, I'm pretty sure you're aware of that. The opening of the Olympic Games was very controversial because of how it was displayed, you know, the display of the feast. And then people were basically posting videos that were not related to that, saying that this was like a response to that opening. So I had to like kind of trace that down. There was lots of community notes that came afterwards, kind of shut that down quickly. But I gotta ask, what were your thoughts on the opening of the Olympic Games in Paris?
I'm gonna be honest. I fucking hate breaking news, and I also hate like culture shit. So I didn't even watch it. I didn't watch it. I don't even know what the thing is. Is it basically any time like people start fighting about like woke or not woke shit? I just immediately don't give a fuck. So tell me what happened. What are people so mad about? You're gonna tell. Oh, and then also as a quick thing, I have a talk that I'm supposed to do with somebody in 30 minutes. So in case you feel like I'm not trying to run away, but
Cool. Yeah, cool.
Yeah. So what was it?
basically what it was? Yeah, no, all good. Basically what it was a display, you know, of course, you know, the biblical feast, as we all know, that painting that we're familiar with. What was interesting is the people who were portraying that were all drag queens and perhaps, you know, not sure what their other identities were, but it was basically a display in the sense where basically, and also a person was kind of put at the center of the display, almost like food for some reason. It was really weird. And people had a very adverse reaction to this, basically stating that that they were making a mockery of Christianity, and that's the thing that then caused next level amounts of controversy to the point that basically the Olympic Games, I think they had to issue an apology, but that wasn't received well either. So I'm not sure what you make of that.
okay, wait. Can you? So they had an opening ceremony with drag queens. Why does that make people mad? Or
No, like this here. Let me show you a picture if I can find it. Give me a second. Everywhere.
Okay, so it looked like the Last Supper, but with drag.
Yeah. Yes.
Somebody said, to be clear, it was replicating the feast of Dionysus from Greek mythology, not the Christ feast. Is it,
Yes. Yeah, there you go. This is kind of like the parallel that was being drawn. So you see that image, and then of course you see the image below that, and that's the thing that then basically caused the adverse reaction.
Hold on.
I sent it on Discord.
Yeah. I'm trying to see what the... Let me open open your thing for stream. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, so they felt like this top thing was making fun of the Last Supper.
Yes.
Okay, and people, they claim that they were doing a feasting scene for Dionysus. Okay, and people were, I guess, really mad at this? Okay.
Yes. Yeah. I thought you were aware of this already, but I mean, given
No,
that you
I've
don't
heard
really
people
care.
talk about it. I just haven't,
Right.
I just haven't followed it, yeah.
Yeah, sure. And I think there was also another instance where they were playing heavy metal, and there was like it's weird.
Okay.
People got very triggered at this. I don't really care about sports, nor do I really care to watch the Olympics. I guess, the Olympics are kind of, where the peak of humanity in terms of physicality is supposed to be displayed. But in reality, I really don't care about such things. I care about engineering and, having interesting conversations, perhaps more so, and kind of like watching those interesting conversations happen.
Sure. You can not care about it, but it's probably like a good thing, right? That like all the countries get together and then like you have your best athletes.
Oh,
and
yeah,
everybody kind of
100%, 100%.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
It's a nice call to gathering as well. Yeah, it's a nice call to gathering. Like, say, for instance, you're in a pub or something, or you have like a family event. Like, I won't deny it causes it's good for it's good for people, right? I mean, of course, you can be an exception and you don't really like this or kind of relate to it. But I think for a lot of people, it's actually really cool to see, and it's nice. I think it's important. By and large, I think it's actually important.
Okay.
Because it's a cool gathering. We all can use a little bit of that.
Yeah, I probably agree. Yeah.
Another thing I gotta ask: what do you eat? Like, what's your preferred diet? It's a weird question, I know, but
I have a cook that makes something for me every day, and then I'll usually drink like a Red Bull, drink a Soylent, and then I usually eat whatever meal he makes. And I think I typically just eat like one big meal a day, but it's nothing like super strict. Probably just, yeah.
interesting. Is it like is it more vegetarian or is it like more
No, just
meat-based?
ordinary. It'll be like probably like a meat, vegetable, and like a protein, a vegetable, and a carb or whatever. Just like an average, ordinary American meal.
Oh, I like that. That's very nice, very balanced. I thought that was going to be I thought it was going to be something a bit more extreme. I kind of err to the extreme. I do more carnivore based. Kind of feel like that's very efficient. You actually don't have to eat that much. But you kind of have to enter ketosis, you have to have kind of a strict diet in a sense, right? Like cut out sugars mostly, and stuff like that. So it requires a different type of discipline. So if you wanted to actually enjoy like the process of eating, that's probably not the best diet to pick. Although I'm a very simple person, so I just pick that, and I think it works out very well for me. I can basically stay awake for practically longer periods of time than mostly anyone else, and only need like 4 hours of sleep, and everything still works out fine. I don't feel any decrease in energy. Ever since I've done this, it's amazing.
Where do you get all of your different meats from, or what kind of meats are you eating?
Primarily like sirloin. I think that one's pretty nice. I try to get it from local farmers as much as possible, because I like to support them. It's important. And then I eat a shit ton of butter along with it, because that's kind of like what you have to do. You need to eat a lot of butter, not just for satiety, but also for also to kind of like for vitamins and such, right? Nutrients.
Don't you need other, do you have to eat like vegetables and everything as well, or?
Oh, not really. Although sometimes I do eat those as well. Like sometimes, for instance, you'd need vitamin C, so you'd eat like an orange or something like that, or just eat lemons.
Interesting. I feel like you would be super nutrient deficient on that diet, but
yeah, I mean, there's a bit of a deeper science on that you kind of like have to get into. There's some supplementation that you'd have to do at some points, but I kind of feel like you could balance that all out.
yeah, I've done a decent amount of research on it because Peterson brought this up before, and I wanted to fight with him on it because I hate Jordan Peterson. But when I did more reading on it for a lot of the carnivore diets, the case studies are very limited. But the Inuit or the Eskimos, I don't know what you call them now, but they studied their people's diets. But the way that they typically make those carnivore diets work is when they say that they eat only meat, they eat like a variety of meats. So like they'll eat like livers and kidneys and other things. And through eating all the different types of meats of the animal, they're able to basically meet all of their daily nutrients, which was surprising. But I don't know if you can do it just eating like sirloins or like red meat or whatever. I feel like you'd have to eat like a greater variety of things, but I don't know.
Well, yeah, of course, yeah. I sometimes also eat fish and such in between as well. Just kind of like any type of meat will do.
Okay.
and it just kind of averages out throughout the week, really. So there's not really that much of a strict. I mean, primarily I eat these sirloins because they're easy to make and easy to acquire. But then there's like different cuts of meat that I'll also eat as well. Sometimes also a little bit of liver, that kind of stuff. Whatever really, whatever really I come across that's fresh.
Oh,
You're not,
lol.
and you're not worried at all about the long-term impact of sleep deprivation?
That is concerning. I've also noticed that is not affecting me positively. But for now, I kind of stick to that in a sense because I have a lot of things to do and I need to fit that in. Eventually, I'll kind of like balance that out back to something that's more normal. But right now, there's a lot of stuff that I need to do. I have basically 2 different jobs, and I do the whole X thing on the side as well, which is like a third job almost. And so to do this and to network with people to just basically get growth, because I really do want to grow and I want to, break beyond certain barriers, it requires that kind of effort for me personally. So yeah, I have
And
no
you're
idea
not
why I
worried-
do this.
you
I
don't-
just feel like it's necessary.
You're not ever worried about like sacrifices to, I don't know. I'm assuming you're decently well off financially. I could be wrong on that, but assuming you are, you're not worried that at some point, like trading lifespan or health span for a little bit more financial or whatever other type of success is like a not good trade that doesn't factor in, or you don't care about it as much, or
I think the impact is not as heavy. It just depends on how long you do it for, how much you do it for. Like if your body is basically telling you, yeah, man, I'm not feeling well. If you feel like your mental faculties are suffering, that's probably the time where you say, okay, you know what, I'll have to change some things. You know what I mean?
I disagree, but
Right now, I'm not
I
really
could be
feeling
wrong,
that.
but it's the have you?
Yeah. I mean, I don't recommend anyone do what I do. I highly recommend not doing it. Actually, as a matter of
sure, yeah.
fact, this is not a thing that you should do.
Well, I was gonna say
Yeah,
one
I'm
of
not
the
trying to
things
make an
that
argument for that at all.
one of the things I noticed in college, I went to school for a few years for music. I had to drop out because I was working. But when I was in school for music, one of the things that I noticed is at some point, because of my work schedule, I had to shift my practicing at night. And I noticed that as the night went on, before I ever had the physical feeling of feeling tired, there were musical passages that I couldn't play at the same speed. You'll use a metronome for tempo. I couldn't play them at the same tempo as I could. And I'd noticed that like anywhere from like 30 to 60 minutes before I would actually physically feel tired, I would have like a degrading of performance. And it was one of the first times in my life I started to wonder, I wonder if lack of sleep can mess with you before you're even like cognizant of it messing with you. And then I've looked up like, it sounds like if you're like messing with sleep, I'm sure you've looked up like
Oh,
To
wait.
acquire. But then there's like different cuts of meat that I'll also eat as well. Sometimes also a little bit of liver, that kind of stuff. Whatever really, whatever really I come across that's fresh. Basically.
you're not worried at all about the long-term impact of sleep deprivation?
That is concerning. I've also noticed that is not affecting me positively. But for now, I kind of stick to that in a sense because I have a lot of things to do and I need to fit that in. Eventually, I'll kind of like balance that out back to something that's more normal. But right now, there's a lot of stuff that I need to do. I have basically 2 different jobs, and I do the whole X thing on the side as well, which is like a third job almost. And so to do this and to network with people to just basically get growth, because I really do want to grow and I want to, break beyond certain barriers, it requires that kind of effort for me personally. So yeah, I have
And
no
you're
idea
not
why I
worried-
do this.
you
I
don't-
just feel like it's necessary.
You're not ever worried about like sacrifices to, I don't know. I'm assuming you're decently well off financially. I could be wrong on that, but assuming you are, you're not worried that at some point like trading lifespan or health span for a little bit more financial or whatever other type of success is like a not good trade that doesn't factor in, or you don't care about it as much, or
I think the impact is not as heavy. It just depends on how long you do it for, how much you do it for. Like if your body is basically telling you, yeah, man, I'm not feeling well. If you feel like your mental faculties are suffering, that's probably the time where you say, okay, you know what, I'll have to change some things. You know what I mean?
I disagree, but
Right now, I'm not
I
really
could be
feeling
wrong,
that.
but it's the have you?
I mean, I don't recommend anyone do what I do. I highly recommend not doing it. Actually, as a matter of
sure, yeah.
fact, this is not a thing that you should do.
Well, I was gonna say
Yeah,
one
I'm
of
not
the
trying to
things
make
that
an argument for that at all.
one of the things I noticed in college, I went to school for a few years for music. I had to drop out because I was working. But when I was in school for music, one of the things that I noticed is at some point, because of my work schedule, I had to shift my practicing at night. And I noticed that As the night went on, before I ever had the physical feeling of feeling tired, there were musical passages that I couldn't play at the same speed. You'll use a metronome for tempo. I couldn't play them at the same tempo as I could. And I'd noticed that like anywhere from like 30 to 60 minutes before I would actually physically feel tired, I would have like a degrading of performance. And it was one of the first times in my life I started to wonder, I wonder if lack of sleep can mess with you before you're even like cognizant of it.
I think I
messing
should
with
just
you.
rebel against all things
And then I
Snicker.
looked up like, it sounds like if you're like messing with sleep, I'm sure you've looked up like the Uberman cycle and everything else, and I've looked up like polyphasic or biphasic sleeping, and they all seem incredibly attractive. But
The issue is
the
my
two
Fire
things that I
King's
think of
dead.
is that one, there are no long-term health effects on it, and two, I feel like I'd always look to the military for like sleep hacks. Like if there was a way to reliably hack your sleep, I feel like the military at the very least would be doing it. Like every soldier would be on a biphasic sleep schedule because you would get so much more productivity out of your soldiers. But that's kind of what I think of it as.
Interesting. Yeah, of course. Yeah, I think it would be much more sustainable to do it that way. I mean, again, what I'm doing is not necessarily sustainable for now. It's just something that I have to do within a certain period of time, I feel like. And then basically I get to the point where I can kind of plateau that out and take it easy and just kind of use that as a foundation to work off of.
Sure. Yeah.
Because like I had this goal that by the end of the first year of basically starting to do stuff on X, I wanted to kind of like reach 100K for following. So I just kind of like work as hard as I can on that to expand that. Also doing ridiculous things. Like it's actually funny, the type of situations that I find myself in, there's mostly, it's all improvised. I never really prepare for anything. I can't really prepare for anything. It's even funny with you, for instance. I hadn't heard of you up until
Ooh, should I dismantle one?
a month before we had that space. And basically that was just, you were just like brought up by a friend who was explaining what you were doing. I was like, oh, this is interesting. And then that was just a single day where we had that
One
conversation
amazing
about
three
who you were. I was
ever.
like, okay, cool. And they kind of like forgot about that. And then of course, the
This was Brandon
controversy
Fusion at
started.
1.
I said, okay, cool, let's do a debate. And it was like completely unprepared, no idea what really to expect. There's a lot of people warning me and telling me that you steamroll. And I'm like, I kind of feel like the steamrolling thing is a result of people talking too much and putting too many points out, and then basically not being able to kind of have those points be answered. Like I kind of noticed you do the thing with Protocol in MySpace, where he was bringing out like something such as 6 points, and you were writing all of them down, and then addressing them one by one in great detail, and then this guy felt like you were steamrolling. In reality, you weren't steamrolling at all. You were just basically taking what he was saying and addressing every single point, right? Which is quite odd and quite impressive, I would say. But, it's not steamrolling, right? It's just a
Sure,
conversation.
yeah. It's annoying because people accuse me of not paying attention or not listening when I'm literally, you can just look at my stream, I'm just writing down things. But then when I start to respond one at a time, there's a form of argumentation called a Gish Gallop where the goal is to like lay down like 5 or 10 bad arguments all at the same time, and then your opponent can never really like respond to all of them. And I notice that when somebody wants to lay out 4 or 5 or 6 points, that when I write them all down and respond to them, they want to like focus on the first thing that I say, which is fine. I don't mind going point by point through an argument, but I'm not going to do that after you've had the ability to, in the mind of the audience, to lay out your entire argument, and I can't lay out an entire counter argument. So I usually,
Do you sometimes use that? Do you sometimes use that as well as a tool?
Use what?
The thing that you just mentioned. I'm sorry, I couldn't repeat the
Gish
technical.
Gallop. No, I try pretty hard. I read out all my notes before a debate. I'll talk about my rhetorical strategies going in. I'll review them. Like I'm open on my stream all the time to talk about anything. If anybody wants to come back and have a conversation, like I try to be pretty open and honest with all my stuff. Like if you really wanted to prepare against me for a debate, you just have to watch my stream like a few days before, and I'm writing out like, here's all my notes. This is the research I'm using. Like I literally have a folder in Obsidian that's publicly available on my website called Debate Prep that goes over like all of my stuff. Like, yeah, I try pretty hard. I mean, like I'm not perfect. There are times where I make mistakes or fuck up, or I might get too emotionally invested in something in the heat of the moment and not give a point that I probably should have in retrospect. But for the most part, I try pretty hard to be truth-seeking, as all the centrists like to say they are.
Truth, you got that. You like slowed down for that one. That was funny.
Wow.
Yeah, that's nice. Actually, I think that's really impressive. It's cool. This is the kind of part of the Destiny that I want actually more people to see, especially like on X. What you just explained, because I think that's really cool. You should like clip this part, or somebody should clip this part and post that, because that's really good. I think that's really cool. Kind of gives more insight as to, kind of who you are and, how you got to where you are, right? Because many people just assume that you kind of got to where you are just because of controversy alone. But in order to be as big as you are, you actually have to put in a lot of effort into a given thing. And clout alone, based on negativity, just does not sustain that kind of growth.
Yeah, I think you could probably you can grow really big doing that, but it's always going to be temporary, right? Yeah. Like I've been doing this for 15 years, so I think I've got some longevity. Yeah.
Oh yeah, 100%. If you're able to stay relevant for 15 years on the internet, you're doing something right.
Yeah.
Because memes die, right? So if you don't evolve and you're not able to improve, then of course you'll be left behind, like all those many YouTubers. I mean, there's like literally YouTube channels that are creating video essays on the downfall of certain YouTube creators, and the pattern's all the same, right? They start out with the desire to gain clout by spreading negativity, then they attain it, but then they have to kind of like one up the thing that they already did, making the next thing more extreme than the previous, and that eventually ends up destroying them.
Yeah, there's a lot of predictable patterns that people fall into, but I mean, I guess they must not. I guess when you're in that pattern, right, when you're being emotional about a thing, it's hard to perceive that you are. So you probably fall into them without realizing it, and then by the time you do, apparently it's too late for a lot of people. But
Yeah.
Okay. I'm curious because I have to ask. Obviously, you kind of addressed this, right? You had the thing with Elon's daughter recently come out where she referenced you in her thread. You got the fact that
my name personally, Adrian, right?
Yep.
Is that correct?
Adrian Dittman. Yep.
What? She did? That's wild. That's the first time I'm hearing of this. Could you oh wow. That's wild.
You also sound, you have all the same hobbies and interests and everything else. You know what you should do? You should try to do a 50,000 sub drive on YouTube, and you should do a face reveal at 50,000 subs. You should stream with a webcam. I bet you'd get a lot of people subscribing.
That's true. That's true. Well, I mean, the rest of the identity is kind of an issue. There's a reason why I don't want to show my face. It's not because it's not really because these people could cause me harm in real life. It's just something I don't really feel comfortable with, knowing the types of people who are on the internet. You know what I mean? I gotta ask, how exactly did you get to the point of being comfortable with your face being on the internet?
I was kind of molded this way. I think through my life experiences, I was kind of like bred to be this person before streaming on the internet even kind of came about. I think that the people that are really big into this, there's probably something that's already happened in the like the environment of the child, like growing up. Because I have a hard time thinking that an ordinary person could be okay coming onto the internet and then dealing with all of the insane feedback you get. I think most people aren't wired for that. Like I think most healthy people aren't. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, look, it's absolutely insane that what people will say. You will truly see the worst and the best of humanity when you're on the internet and you're big. And to kind of like sustain that, everybody wants to grow. Everybody wants to have the big numbers, but nobody wants to deal with the consequences of that, because a lot of some of the small aspects of those big numbers are going to be people who do not like you at all. Right? And for me, it's actually worse because. Well, probably not worse. I mean, for me, it's bad in a different way. Wherein you of course get the people who are jealous of success. That's the average. But I also get the people who don't like Elon as well. So whoever dislikes Elon, by default dislikes me as well, because of the obvious parallels, right?
Sure.
Even though there isn't anything, like really that just. I mean, there are certain similarities, and people make the effort to point those similarities out. They don't actually focus on the differences. Like say, for instance, one of the key differences would be speech, right? Our speech patterns are similar, but I speak faster. That's one thing that, I kind of feel like I'd have to point out. Sure, I have stammering as well, but that's because I'm autistic, right? This is the same thing. He's autistic, I'm autistic. I'm just different in terms of me being able to basically do public speaking, right? Because I kind of tend to speak quick and be able to articulate my point in great detail without kind of, stammering too much. You know what I mean? That's a key difference for people have to understand.
Sure, okay, it's a difference. Do you think if you're worried about a lot of the real life fallout from potentially revealing who you are, do you have strong opinions about the fact that it seems like Libs of TikTok is officially sanctioned by X to basically dox and destroy the lives of anybody that they decide to post on that X? Account?
I mean, that's actually a really good point. I don't actually. There's a fine line here. It's not technically doxing what this person was doing, right? What they were doing is actually they're just taking publicly available information, such as the fact that these people were commenting a certain way.
So if someone looks up Adrian Dittman, finds something that's attached to Adrian Dittman, and then searches for that thing, there like we can dox Adrian Dittman and figure out who he is. Okay. So.
Publicly on the internet, on posts, for instance, right? They were taking that and just basically saying, "Here, are you as a company, are you comfortable having this person work with you?" Now, of course, doing this, I wouldn't do this myself. I think that's an ethical concern. But technically speaking, it's a gray area. It's a really annoying gray area. You know what I mean? Like it's
I feel like I
technically
don't like
doxing,
Super
also
Poly.
not at the same time. I kind of feel like it errs towards the not a lot more than towards the it is. You know what I mean?
Just okay. So I'm curious, backing up, because I'm a very do you ever say how old you are, or is that a?
I kind of reveal it sometimes.
Sure. Okay.
Like
You don't have to
my
if you don't want to. I'm 35. I've been on the internet for a long time. I've seen like a lot of these definitions like come and go and change and evolve over time. In your mind, what is doxing to you?
If the identity of an individual if an identity of the individual has not been published before by the individual themselves, say for instance, you use your personal face and ID and where you work. So imagine you have like a LinkedIn profile, right? You say who you are, where you work, what your work history is. If that's public, then if somebody kind of goes to that and says, yeah, that's your public information, then that's kind of an issue, right? But if they associate this with an anonymized identity, because let me kind of rephrase that. So you have public information, right? You have the LinkedIn account. If I were to have something like that for, say, an X account, and all my public information is on there, my work history, my name, whatever, whatnot, and I were to then go on a post somewhere and comment some really fucked up stuff, and that company were then to say, we can't really associate with this because not even politically speaking this is bad, but just bad overall because you just issued a death threat, technically speaking, or you advocated for someone's death, we're going to have to fire you, right? I don't think that, and if somebody points this out, that me as a person with this profile has said this, then that's just consequences of the action, right? If you, for instance, now were to say there's an anonymized account and you were to say somehow find the identity of that anonymized account and link that's doxing, in my opinion. So if your identity is already known on that account, you kind of show the identity, and you're using that account where you show the identity to make a certain opinion public, then if you're associated with that opinion personally, then that's just the way it is, right? But again, if you reveal the information,
I feel like I'd rather do.
Account, that's doxing. If that makes sense.
Okay, I kind of understand what you're saying. I feel like I have a simpler and more intuitive, and I think a more honest definition. Not that you're being dishonest, but in terms of how people see doxing. The way that I would view it is, I think that doxing is any time you aggregate personally identifiable information for the intent to harm somebody. I think that's doxing. Absent a great public interest. The public interest part is important. So, for instance, let's say that somebody has made a couple posts on Reddit where they kind of reveal their identity and they say that they have a boyfriend and it's a guy. Let's say that somebody has made a few posts on Facebook where they have their real name and they're hanging out with their family in Indiana. And then let's say somebody on Twitter starts tweeting and they say, I don't like the Trump administration's LGBT policies or whatever bullshit, right? Let's say somebody digs through their profiles online and they see the stuff that they've stated publicly and they're able to bring it all together on Twitter and they say, oh, you're this person and you live here and you're hiding the fact that you're gay and that's why you're so unhappy with these things. I would consider something like that to be doxing because you've taken personally identifiable information and now you've aggregated it into one area for the purposes of harassing or harming a person. Even if it was available publicly before, I think that the intentionality is important when people publish stuff.
Interesting. Yeah, I'd largely agree with you on that. But again, that's the gray area definition that I was kind of referring to, right? Morally speaking, what you just explained is basically, I think that's how it should go. But I mean, look, it's kind of like a conflict in a sense, right? Whether or not you should be part of that conflict is entirely up for debate, literally. But yeah, I wouldn't want to do that myself. I wouldn't do that with this amount of power that, say, for instance, Libs of TikTok has. But I mean, hey, they can do whatever they want, and I guess it's still technically in the gray area. It's just weird, you know what I mean? It's a gray area that I think is not possible. It's just war, and war is ugly. That's kind of how I see it.
Yeah, I guess, but I mean, the idea of having war where you're trying to find like every single individual in real life whose political opinions you don't like, not you personally, I'm sorry, but somebody doesn't like, and then they're like publishing them online. I feel like that's kind of a spooky, I feel like it's like a chilling effect, right? Well, now people are scared to publish anything or write anything across any account because somebody might show up in real life and record you at your job. And then, yeah. Do you think?
Well, I think it's just been kind of the same across the board for everyone, no matter what political opinion they've had. I think if you had erred towards a very particular opinion in the past, then that would have happened by default. Say, for instance, you're a Trump supporter, but you don't actually voice this opinion at work, nor does this opinion affect how you do work. But then you still get fired from a job for no reason, essentially, right? So this is something that happened historically.
Yeah.
That's kind of an issue as well. So I'd say, by and large, I would disagree with being fired for political opinions if the political opinion itself does not impact the job.
Yeah, I think that would be a big issue. I don't like that. I'm curious, do you have a stance on, because Elon banned an account that was just posting where his airplane was flying, and my understanding is that information is essentially available publicly. All air traffic is. Do you think that was wrong for him to ban that if it's just posting, if somebody was just posting his flights, basically?
I think information such as that shouldn't be public in the first place. That's kind of where I think. I mean, look at this person. He's a very high. He's a person who's targeted by many people, right? So there's a lot of people who would want harm or just want to stalk him. So imagine if you could basically track that person's every move to a remarkable degree of accuracy. You know exactly where they're going to be, even before they themselves are there. So you could like prepare ahead of time. That's really that's a threat. So I would say information like that shouldn't be public in the first place, like at all. That's kind of my stance on that. And so him banning that because basically it was just doxing his exact location constantly, I think that was the right thing to do, in my opinion.
I don't necessarily even disagree with you, unless maybe somebody can give me a strong argument for why a lot of that air traffic is public. I don't necessarily disagree with you, but I feel like that's essentially the exact same thing then that happens with that Libs of TikTok account, because the goal is they basically take a person who's now been super blown up, publicly is known, people can easily find like the address and like where they might be a teacher and everything else, and then it's for the purpose of like directing harassment. And I'm sure that person for the first time in their life is now like starting to be fearful that people are going to show up or do crazy things to them, which is why it seems hard to ban one and not the other, is my feeling. Yeah.
Well, I mean, true. If now people on the internet decide to then basically find that person's location with, like, say, for instance, what Libs of TikTok was doing wasn't actually revealing their exact location in this sense. Of course, you can infer location. Anyone can do this, actually. Which is also why I don't recommend that anyone posts, say, a picture of where they're at currently. Like, say, imagine you're just at a hotel and you're chilling and you're taking a picture of, say, your surroundings. Like, a person can literally find you in minutes. Actually, I think it's easier for people on the internet to find you than it is for the government to find you, based on the fact that you can like go through different types of channels, not just the official channels. I think the official channels actually have more latency and more lag than basically finding a person based on the image in their surroundings alone, which is wild, right? So I guess I think that is an issue, right? But then again, I would also recommend that if you are going to do anything that's on the internet that could become public, like say, for instance, voice your opinion on, particular things such as the assassination of former president, then probably do so under an anonymized account. Or if you know that that is very violent, what you're about to say, just don't say it at all. I think some things just ought not to be said because, like, basically responsibility, right? Just because you have free speech and just because you can say a certain thing doesn't mean that you should. You know what I mean?
While I agree with that like freedom of speech is not freedom from consequences, or just because you have the freedom of speech, you shouldn't necessarily say a thing. I guess my two issues there is that one, this is an irrelevant thing, but it's an appeal to hypocrisy, is that it seems like conservatives were really upset when the left was trying to like woke scold them on everything and get people kicked out of schools. But then the second thing is I feel like there is a, when you talk about like appropriateness, right? If you have a partner, I imagine there's things that you would say to your romantic partner, especially sexual things, that would be inappropriate to say to their parents, right? Or your parents, or like in a group of friends, right? Or there might be conversations you have with your friends that would be really inappropriate to have in front of a coworker, in front of your boss. I think the thing that I don't like about the internet is that right now, people are turning every single potential thing you post on the internet as though it's the same as presenting it in like the widest forum for infinite scrutiny possible. Because so many things, like I'm sure we both know that probably half of Americans have said like morally impeachable things on their Facebook posts, but the reality is that like people just aren't usually looking that closely, and the idea of taking an account and putting it under a microscope and then blowing it up to a global level just seems like really unfair to me.
I mean, I'd largely agree with you. I think it's a very unnatural consequence in a sense. We've never really had something like this before, where basically anything that you say, like, if people are used to kind of, especially the older generation, is used to kind of like meeting up in a spot physically and then talking about a certain thing. There was literally the definition, hey, there's a spot, so we're all going to meet up there physically and have a conversation. They kind of have that same idea still in their head as to how a conversation goes. So they type this way online, right? But the problem is, of course, the online is basically a huge public record, which is practically permanent to a certain extent, right? That's kind of the issue. So they would say things a certain way that you really shouldn't say at all, just basically because they're used to this thing. Like, would you agree that is the case, and that's kind of an issue? Where
Yeah,
there's kind of
definitely.
like an unnatural permanence to information.
I wouldn't necessarily say an unnatural permanence. I would say there's an unnatural awareness of it, or like, because I think that things are actually surprisingly not as permanent as people thought. Like, when accounts drop off the internet, people forget them or whatever. But I think it's more just that anybody can have an opinion about anybody at any point in time. Like, a long time ago, like if somebody were to publish, this guy, said a racial slur to his classmate, you could publish that in a school newspaper, and I think in that case, right, there were consequences for actions. I think that those consequences are fair. If you do something bad in a given environment, then I think the people in that environment probably have a right to know, and maybe you should be punished for it. But the idea that now if you do something, now that spreads to all environments, I think that's really bad. Like, I guess for a tech analogy or whatever, like if you do something really bad on a video game and you get banned, I think it's fair to ban you on that video game, and even to ban other accounts depending on the severity of the thing, but I don't think you should be banned from all video games. And it seems like that's where our culture is right now, especially with an account like Libs of TikTok, where the idea is if I can find a thing that you said that we politically disagree with, we're going to try to come down and destroy your life in as many ways as possible in order to enforce this ideological orthodoxy onto society. Because if you say anything that we deem as being politically incorrect, we're going to find you and destroy you. And I think that's really scary, the chilling effect there.
Interesting. I'd largely agree. But I mean, there's certain things that I think there's perhaps you could call it a pain threshold for certain things that you can say, where I think certain consequences measured. If I were to, like, say, work at a particular place, and I personally have advocated for the fact that an assassin shouldn't have missed their shot of a certain person, knowing full well the chaos that it would cause. Personally, I think that person probably shouldn't work there anymore. You know what I mean? That's a bit of an issue. If you have that kind of in your mind and you're able to kind of like say that publicly and not be afraid of the consequences, whatever, thinking that this is a completely normal thing to say, I think that's kind of an issue, right? It's almost like issuing a death threat, right? There's a pain threshold. You can say all kinds of other things, but I think this is like where kind of opinion and advocacy kind of like that there's an issue. I think there's a difference in what kind of things you can say. Like, if for instance, if you're pro-gay, you shouldn't be canceled, right? Of course. And if you're kind of against it in a sense, you have some sort of disapproval, I don't think you should be canceled either. But if you start advocating for the death of certain things, that's, I think, where the problem begins. You know what I mean? If you actually just exhibit true disgust and probably hate towards a certain group of people, or just a person in a sense, right?
Oh, I see.
I think that's where kind of like you enter that threshold where a certain consequence is actually warranted. You know what I mean?
Sure. I disagree, because I think that the First Amendment, and the concept of freedom of speech, the First Amendment doesn't apply to doxing or canceling, of course, but I think the concept is important.
Too many bricks.
But listen, we can chat again tomorrow or later if you're still awake. I need to run and do another conversation, and then I'm debating the weirdo conservative guy later, so...
Gotcha, man.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, man. This was a really nice conversation. We should definitely have it more often. It's cool.
Sure thing. Have fun. Be careful. Bye.
Yeah, thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah, so I got some questions about the debate you had with the definition guy.
Yeah.
Some other like Jan 6 shit.
Okay.
So one, what is the point of arguing over the definition? Like, I get with that guy because he wouldn't like allow the conversation to move on and he's acting in bad faith. But I mean, is there a reason why that word is important?
Oh. How much time you got?
Well, I mean, is this gonna go on for hours, or what do you mean?
Normal spell. Does this count as branded fusion? There's
You're
another
American,
branded
right?
fusion suck?
Yeah.
God bless. Wait, what state are you
This
from?
is
What
normal
kind of American are you?
I'm a Midwestern.
I'm
why
from
do I need
Nebraska
this, though?
For 30 years. Are we like
Dude,
kindred
you're my
spirits?
neighbor.
Oh, you. I'm sorry, but there is no good state near Nebraska, and even Nebraska is not a good state.
Oh, bro, but you got that all you need is a case of Bush Light, dude.
Are you? Am I? Can you
Suddenly,
say what
those
state you're
states end up
from?
being really good.
Are you? Or do
Yeah,
you?
I'll say I'm from Illinois.
Okay. Okay. St. Louis or? No, Missouri. That's Missouri. What's in Illinois? Wait, don't
St.
tell me!
Louis is
Don't tell
partially
me!
in Illinois.
What is the big city in Illinois? There's at least one of them. What is it?
Peoria.
Wait,
Peoria, Illinois is the big one.
hold on. No. Oh, Chicago. Me.
Jesus.
Jesus Christ.
The sign was right.
Delete that. August, you have to scrub this video from the internet. Oh my God. Chicago. Holy shit. Forget
I picked the wrong lib, dude.
No, shut the up. Me. Okay. Forget that. Okay.
Honestly,
What,
this
did I
is
say St. Louis? Why did I say that?
I mean, it's partially in Illinois. You're kind of right.
Yeah, but that's like saying like, that's like saying Kansas City is in Kansas. Not really.
This doesn't even. You
kind
can
of,
talk about
but-
later.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, sorry.
Especially when you
Okay.
can activate the
get
card.
to the
It's
point.
like in an phase thing. It's like fine.
Why is the word insurrection?
Yeah, we had a whole ass civil.
Why is that
We
word?
had a whole ass civil war.
I wanted to get up
civil
for
war in the
to
United
60
States,
for
right?
grass.
Where the North bought the South over slavery and all sorts of
I'm gonna do
bullshit
it in
and
a
seceding
different
from the
way.
Union, right?
Mm-hmm.
After the Civil War, the people in the government were a little bit weary about, well, you know how all these people just rebelled against us and we had a whole civil war? Should they be allowed to compete or not compete? Should they be allowed to participate in government again, right? And as part of that, they passed something, okay, the 14th Amendment to the Constitution. So they changed the Constitution and they added as part of the Constitution now, Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, which basically said that if you had engaged in insurrection or rebellion, you were no longer allowed to hold office if you'd previously held office, okay?
Okay.
Because of this amendment and because of that section, do you remember there was big news about how Colorado had kicked Trump off the ballot?
Yeah.
This is what they were citing to, right? They were citing to, well, there's the 14th Amendment and Section 3, and that gives a qualification for being president. And if you had previously taken an oath and engaged in insurrection, then you no longer can take another oath. You can't be an office holder again. So Colorado embarked on trying to decide whether or not January 6th was an insurrection, insofar as the framers of this amendment had meant. And their analysis, they said, well, it was an insurrection. Therefore, we've concluded that Trump can't be listed on our ballot, so we're kicking off the ballot. Now, this is kind of like why that insurrection language
Everyone uses
is
Super
such
Poly
a
apparently.
huge deal
Fucking
in the
hell.
United States is because, one, they were going to take Trump off the ballot, and two, there's been at least one local office holder, I believe it was in New Mexico, who was prevented from running again for office because of
Oh, you're
this
not using Super
language
Poly?
in the 14th Amendment as well. So that's why the precise wording and intentionality
aren't you?
behind insurrection is so important on a legal
Oh,
level
actually, I know why I keep
and a
Dragon
procedural
Magic videos
level.
because I don't
And
have
then
enough.
Personally, on a moral level, I believe that January 6th, and I think that the facts are indisputable, rises to far more than a riot. Now, whether you want to call it a coup, an insurrection, or a rebellion, it might depend on how you delineate between these particular terms. But I think that insurrection pretty easily and squarely would describe what happened.
So is that why? Is that why there was there's no charge for it? Because it's just like an amendment saying like if you do insurrection, like it's not necessarily like a criminal offense.
Okay, so there's a couple things to keep in mind here that are very fucking annoying to me, okay? Okay, so on the first part, there is no formal definition of insurrection in the legal code. Now, people will cite to 18 USC, it's not 2383, is it? Oh, maybe it is. People will cite to this, I think, Well, they'll say whoever incites, sets foot on, insists, or engages in any rebellion or insurrection against the authority of the United States or the laws thereof, or gives aid to the country, shall be fined under this title in prison not more than 10 years. But people are like, oh, well, look, why didn't they charge him with insurrection or rebellion, right? So there's a couple things. So one, insurrection is not strictly defined anywhere in the legal code. There's just a criminal charge for it, okay? But then two, okay, okay. I need you to turn your law brain on, okay? You get your law brain on?
Oh God, dude, it's pretty empty up there.
It's okay, just a little bit, okay?
Okay.
In the United States of America, all right, if you want to deprive somebody of their freedoms, they have to be afforded due process. Criminal matters in the United States are a very big deal because it's the state coming in to take away part of your life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. Like they're coming to deprive you of what should be a right that you can't be deprived of. So in the United States, we have criminal courts to deal with this. However, in the United States, you're guaranteed a process where you have a trial by jury where the onus is on the state to prosecute you and convince a jury beyond a reasonable doubt that you have committed
I understand
a certain
steering in this.
crime.
I don't understand
That
two of these,
standard,
though.
beyond a reasonable doubt, means that no person, no ordinary person of sound mind could have a reasonable doubt as to whether or not you had engaged in a particular behavior. So when somebody is talking about a criminal charge, you're proving this way beyond the threshold of any like ordinary thing in society. All of this to say that when somebody says, well, if XYZ had occurred here, why wasn't anybody charged with it? People could not be charged with crimes for a multitude of reasons. In my
wasn't the president of the Confederacy not even charged?
Probably. I don't know if
it's been since high school since I've learned about this, but I think that's true.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody's been charged with it. I don't think anybody's, by the way, internationally has ever been charged with the war crime with like genocide or whatever, or apartheid even for South Africa. Nobody was charged with that crime as well. Yeah.
I guess here's my follow-up. Is there a point to even arguing it then? Like, all right, he's not going. It's clearly not applying to him. He is running. What's the point of even making the argument?
Well, in my
Also, it's good against the mirror. I don't think I have anything to deal with the mirror, so.
mind, the reason why I think the argument should be made is because that should be, in and of itself, instantaneously disqualifying of a person for running from office. You tried to coup the US government, and you led an insurrection on the Capitol building in order to hold on to power. That's like it's probably one of the most disqualifying things that you could ever do as a president of the United States. There are very few things that would come over that.
Well, I mean, I agree with you. I would count it as that, but if it's not being counted in this instant, he is going to run. No conversation's going to flip that. I guess
no. The conversation won't. But what I'm saying is,
if I were to make a video, what would be the point of me even making that argument? You know,
I have no idea. You're a commentary YouTuber. For me, that's not to say that like, oh, you're shitty or do this. But for me, as a political debater, what I don't like is that in the political sphere, conservatives are really good at playing offense, and they never have to answer for anything. And this is what set me off over the Trump quote unquote.
What does that mean though? Like, give an example.
As in, like, after the Trump assassination attempt, right? This is a Republican guy that got shot, okay, because he stood up and filmed Trump after he heard shots, and he got shot by a Republican shooter at a Republican event, and somehow the entire media apparatus is staring at liberals saying, wow, you guys keep calling Trump a Nazi, look at what you've done. And it's time and time and time again, it feels like liberals have to apologize for things or, constantly disavow the crazies on their side, like the crazy trans people. When Biden and everybody were running for president, they had to say, no more rioting, guys. The riots aren't okay. You can't set fire to buildings. It's not okay, guys. But on the Republican side, not only do they not apologize for things, they don't even acknowledge they've ever happened. Nobody on the Republican side talked about the dude that was mailing pipe bombs to people who was a massive fan of Donald Trump. Nobody takes credit for the J6 stuff. They either say it wasn't a big deal, or if it was a big deal, it's because Antifa was there, or if it wasn't Antifa, it was because feds made it happen.
Did Mitt Romney and a bunch of Republicans actually say stuff about that though, or am I wrong?
Say stuff about what?
The J6 stuff?
At the very micro moment in time they did, but as time passes, when popularity remains with Trump, they all fall in line.
Okay.
Yeah. Conservatives call, they call us the party of groomers. They call us like pedophiles. There was the whole Gretchen Whitmer plot. They said that was actually the FBI. It's thing after thing after thing of them never accepting responsibility for anything. So all I'm saying is that for me personally, I can't argue for you. I don't know what you're going to do. But for me personally, when I go to debate now with conservatives, I need an acknowledgement about J6. We're not going to talk about a single thing about Biden or Hunter Biden or Kamala or any thing. I don't care until you acknowledge that your president tried to coup the government. And now I want you to tell me why the I should take you seriously when you're supporting an insurrectionist who tried to coup the government. It's one of the most anti-American things you could ever do. Or pro-American, I guess, depending on how you look at it. But at least admit that that was going on, right? Yeah. So that's why, this is why I've taken up this mantle. And I think that conservatives were allowed to walk away from this far too easily. Like in my world, every single conservative right now in office would never hold office again, not because of any legal decree, but just because people would look at them as going like, wow, you really tried to support a guy who tried to coup the government. That's pretty crazy, dog. Like, can't have you in office ever again. Yeah.
Well, what was surprising about watching that last guy is that it would have been like the definitions guy. It would have been like a parody. Like I felt like I would have written up about how online politics is perceived. You know, he like won't even give a definition to the topic. Like I think at one point you just like muttered a bunch of gibberish, and
well, wait, why do you think that was?
Well, it was to prove that he doesn't have any comprehension of the word.
No, why do you think he was so fixated on the definition?
Because he doesn't want to engage in the topic. He doesn't want to.
And why do you think he doesn't want to engage in the topic?
Well, I mean, to be fair, I don't know this guy, so I don't know if I want to be his bad faith. But in the moment, I perceived it as he either doesn't know anything about it, or he knows it's super. And
there
he
you
doesn't
go.
Want
Yep.
to, let it get there.
It's the latter. It's always the latter, right? You don't want to engage in it. I mean, like, if you ever, how old are you?
I'm 47.
Are you? I can't tell if you're with me. Listen, I don't know how young you are, okay? Date some abusive women or talk to some or have some manipulative friends, okay? You see these this is like 101 manipulation, right? Is how conservatives engage, right? If you have done something wrong, you don't sit there and try to defend the action, or okay? All you do is you attack, you project, try to, you know, move on to something else. Yeah, but you never actually own.
What's the point? I don't get really what the point, like, I don't know, dude. I'm too like commentary brained. Like I'm not in deep enough. What is the like point though? What does he get from that?
Obfuscation. You don't have to actually admit that, like, yeah, a really up event happened on January 6th. That was
like, what does he gain from not like acknowledging that the thing exists?
You can pretend the Democrats are worse.
Is that literally just the point?
Yeah, it's team sports. It's one of the drawbacks of a two-party system is it might make us a little bit more allegiant to one side and oppositional to the other, maybe. But yeah.
I mean, okay, fuck. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I gotta look into that guy a little more.
I mean, like, to make it commentary brained, right? If you're like a Destiny supporter and evidence comes out, you know, that I'm like 2-year-olds, like, why would you still defend me after that? Or why would you say that, oh well, Destiny never actually
because he's
did
like
that?
a stan.
Exactly,
He's like
yeah, because this is like, you're a guy, like, you identify with him. Like, I'm the guy that I identify with to be a child rapist, right? So it's either
like a grown-ass man.
Exactly. So either they didn't do it, or if they, you know, if they did, there was a really good reason, or if there wasn't, then it doesn't matter, or right, you just move down the narcissist prayer, basically. Yeah, of course, because you identify with that team, and you don't want to be in the shitty team or the losing team. Yeah.
All right, here's a question I got too: is what is the point of arguing specifically over the riot? I feel like that's the least interesting point of the whole thing.
Yeah. I thought I made this clear beforehand, but maybe I should have made this clear.
I just don't have any. I don't have.
Like the riot stuff, which is the majority of what
I think it's dark for a little more.
I saw you like your video you posted.
I don't have any more of them because
arguing with
I craft a whole other deck apparently.
Yeah.
And,
okay. Hold on.
And then you argued with him, and I don't understand the point of even talking about this.
Yeah. This is not the most important part. This is the climax. The only reason why I agreed to argue with Andrew Wilson, okay, because ordinarily he's on my blacklist, okay, because I know how he debates, and it's just not usually worth my time. The only reason I agreed to do it is because I just wanted to kind of like torture test run through like an insurrection argument, because I know he can give me like the strongest version of a bad faith attack against that particular argument. But if I'm seriously, he's very good at it. He's like,
hey, you got what you asked for, man.
Yeah, he's like he's very verbally adept. You can listen to him. He'll run circles around. Like, you should listen to debate Dave Smith. It was a disaster.
Dude, he sounded retarded, bro.
Yeah, he did, but that's because
I swear to God, it was a fucking trolling. At
okay,
one point.
But that's because I'm extra smart. Okay, listen. All right, I'm not trying to. I'm half joking, but also it is true. Like I'm capable of like if you listen to me talk to Boogie, right? Like I dismantled Boogie, but Boogie in front of a lot of other people can come off as kind of
good
sympathetic.
job. You dismantled the mentally ill guy. Fucking great. I thought you could win a race against him too.
Hey, excuse me. You guys are the commentary community, and you let this guy have a fake cancer diagnosis for 2 years. All right, so fuck you. All right.
I didn't even think you'd go that far.
Well,
man.
there you go. Okay. Okay, but
Well, I guess
just
evenly
wanted to
matches the
focus on
board
kind of,
breaker.
Like the definition of insurrection and see if he had anything I hadn't thought of. But my future debates for this particular
Why?
topic are going to focus way more on the events leading up to it than just the riot absent Trump's behavior afterwards. Yeah, because I think Trump's behavior is the most important part of all this. But we didn't even touch on that really with Andrew
Well,
Wilson.
yeah, because I guess I feel like, I mean, this is how I view January 6th, the entire, like the whole riot, all the way up until I went to make a video on you and I started like reading through the actual
me
docs
just-
and indictment and the Supreme Court and all that shit.
Never do
And
that
it was
again.
essentially that.
I'm just gonna do that for now because I don't have Dark Ruler no
like, I
more,
always
and
thought,
or
okay,
Forbidden
these
Realm.
are
I
a
just
bunch
want
of
features.
people,
So
maybe
just do that.
even Donald Trump, including himself, like thought I legitimately
Yeah, not that much different, but slightly
had
different.
the election, there was some fraud in place or whatever that had me lose. So I am protesting against that right now by marching to the Capitol.
Yeah.
And to me, I think like that's fine. Like if you genuinely think a false election happened, you should go protest.
Yeah.
Is how I thought all the way up until, I read into it and how like malicious.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's why I don't really get the point of like.
No,
talking
yeah.
about
That was just
actual-
one like hyper specific, ultra autistic debate that I wanted over that one thing. That's not what my future combos are gonna look like. Yeah. If you want to be the first one, and then I'm probably gonna try to do this with Muda and other people. I think I probably need like 2 or 3 more days, and then I'll be done doing my whole write-up on this. I kind of want to walk through like basically everything that happened from start to finish, and then I'll ask beforehand like, what are your opinions on this? And then afterwards, I'll ask, were you moved on anything, or what were the most important pieces to you? And then once I've gone through that process with hopefully like 5 or 6 neutral parties,
Oh fuck.
I'll probably try to make like a 10 to 15 minute video condensing what I think are the most important points.
I mean, sure. I don't know how much help I could be, like how much insight I could really provide to you, but
Well, a ton, because if you're kind of like a neutral-ish third party, then yeah, I can walk through, because like there are things that matter a lot to me, because having like been involved in this, I'm like, this is the worst thing ever. But there might be other people who are like, I guess that's kind of bad, but I don't even know why that's that bad. But this other thing, I actually thought this was way worse, and I might not have even thought of that. I'm like, oh, okay, I didn't even know that was as big a deal to some people. So it's just good
yeah,
to.
if you need a normie opinion, I'm in, dude. I could do it.
Yeah, that's what I'll be looking for. Yeah, I'll probably try to hit up Muda and yeah.
Yeah, the Canadian dude.
Bruh.
Hell yeah.
Well, all you fucking, or not you,
What
but
do you
all
think
the,
that
Okay,
all the
Harvard
what-
Canadian
watch what I'll do.
motherfuckers, all-
Destiny or-
I mean, bro, Canadians are real interested in our politics. Okay, I don't know why, right? Jesus.
No, I can't even Fuck. Fuck.
All right, so
Fuck.
the other thing I got is some questions about like the Supreme Court stuff. Like the majority opinion was ultimately I'm trying to recall here. I just want to make sure I phrase this right. Correct me if I get
Yeah.
wrong,
Wait.
Angela.
For which
The
case?
Supreme Court for the immunity.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
The majority opinion was that they never had a president come under criminal charges before, so that's the reason they ended up like this is logically where it would always end up, is how I interpreted a lot of their opinion. And when I see like conservative people talk
Oh,
about
fuck.
the majority opinion
Mm-hmm.
and why like they stand by and why they agree with it, is they always point to like an Obama drone strike that ended up killing like an American.
Yeah.
And I guess I'm trying to understand like I feel like I sort of am understanding a point there, but I don't get it.
You don't get the point they're making.
Like I kind of get the point they're making, but I can't like
The
articulate.
point-
what the
point
hell is
that
their
they're making
starter?
is They're saying, okay, this is what they're saying. Okay, I'll do the.
They're
This is
saying
the.
Obama could be like charged for that. For
Yeah.
murder.
This is the informal argument, okay? The point that they're thinking is, wow, we're going to start criminally charging presidents. You do understand that, like, all presidents have probably committed some crimes. For instance, Barack Obama literally assassinated a U.S. citizen. Where's his due process? Like, they didn't arrest him. They didn't announce charges. They just assassinated him. So if you want to start charging presidents for crimes, how the could you let somebody like Obama assassinate a U.S. citizen? That's, like, basically the informal version of that
So
argument.
I get it, but like also, I mean, surely that also doesn't make any sense. Like seeing that he's the fucking president and the commander in chief of the military.
Well, what do you mean by it? What doesn't make sense? Do you think that the commander-in-chief of the military should be able to assassinate U.S. citizens?
No, but if it's just part of like he happened to be there and they didn't know, then
Well, they did know.
surely there's
They went
some-
after that guy. I think, didn't they? I'm pretty sure they explicitly targeted that guy. No, I'm 99% sure they
What?
did. Yeah, yes, a U.S. citizen, yes.
You're just f***ing trolling me. No,
No, I'm
way.
not trolling you.
So what is the reason then?
Well, the reason was he was working with, was it the Taliban? Didn't they call him like Taliban John or something? He was working.
You have to be f***ing with me, bro. There's no shot.
Hold on.
Oh, you're a fucking liar, dude.
I'm not lying.
Yeah, formal name Taliban John.
I thought they had like a nickname for him. Hold on.
Try special something now, dumbass.
Oh, was it Jihadi John? It sounds like I'm trolling you right now.
What
okay.
are you talking
Top deck,
about?
top deck, call by the grave.
There's no.
I saw his hand. He doesn't have call by the grave. He's top decked it though. He top decked it for sure, 100%. 100%. He top decked it. He top decked it.
So the government
He top
gave
decked
him
it.
the nickname Jihadi John.
No. This is like a media thing, I think.
Let's go. He gave up. He gave up. He knew. He knew.
Not this.
He knew it was coming for him.
Okay, I'm sending you a link. The Jihadi John guy, I think, was a different guy. I'm sorry. I think it might have been this guy. According to the U.S. government, Abdul Rahman al-Awlaki's father.
Dude, he looks like he's like 15.
16, yeah.
16, Jesus.
Anwar al-Awlaki was a leader of Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula.
Okay, I'm so sorry. I don't care. Oh, this might be really dumb. Oh, if you can't. Oh, never mind. If you had an answer, that might have been really. Did I go straight into Sanctifier? Yes. Oh. No. I have to do a spellcaster to do that. Oh, I don't do Grand Quickle either. What do I do? Oh, that's just gonna mirror jaded, I guess. I do two darks. I'm not gonna be able to use thrust because he's not gonna use anything. And then I fuse with this to get a Grand Quickle out. Yeah. This. Discarding this because fusion duplication will let me Brendan fusion again to get my chat out. Do this and this. Okay, and then do a special summon this. Activate. Place it. What? Oh. No, this is stupid. Fuck. I don't know. I don't care. I fucking cooked myself so hard. It's so dumb. God. let's not do this actually. Fuck me. Why is this in the middle of my screen? Okay. Well, unfortunate L, but I'll take it. Yes. And then I'm going to get the canard out of here. Don't want to, and I'm tired. Okay. But thanks for listening. Bye.